Chapter 106. Zhang Xiu laughed in his heart. This superstar was really impolite. What made Zhang Xiu even more speechless was that without waiting for him to agree, she actually wanted to climb onto Zhang Xiu's back. Who knew that as soon as her foot exerted a bit of force, she would immediately cry out in pain. Then, Zhang Xiu saw that our idol's big sparkling eyes were immediately filled with hot tears. She forcefully bit her cherry lips to prevent the tears from falling out. Otherwise, our idol's image would be ruined. However, she still said with a sobbing tone, "It hurts. That fall just now was really tragic. Even a strong man would be unbearable if he fell, let alone a delicate girl." As everyone knew, girls weren't afraid of being crushed, but they were definitely afraid of falling. "Where did you get hurt?" Xiao Xuetong pursed her lips and said, "It seems to be my ankle." As she said that, she courted death and moved a few times. Her whole body trembled and she let out a miserable cry. Her tears couldn't stop flowing down. Zhang Xiu said, "Do you want me? Do you want me to help you take a look?" Xiao Xuetong first nodded her head, then she remembered and asked, "Do you know how to take a look?" "Ignorant, stupid. There's actually someone who dares to question this sovereign's medical skills?" Zhang Xiu said, "Then you should call someone to send you to the hospital." Xiao Xuetong really couldn't stand the pain and said, "Since you know how to take a look, then help me take a look first." Zhang Xiu said in his heart, "You actually dare to question this sovereign, you'll suffer." Thus, he put on a professional expression like a doctor in a hospital and said, "Does it hurt a lot?" "Nonsense." Xiao Xuetong was in so much pain that her tears fell down. "You're still asking this kind of question, you're doing it on purpose, right?" Zhang Xiu said, "I reckon that it might be a fracture of your ankle. Even if it's cured, it will leave behind a permanent illness in the future. You'll limp when you walk. It's a pity that such a beautiful superstar has become a cripple." For a girl, the most frightening thing was not death, but the loss of her beauty. Xiao Xueqing seemed to see herself limping, and tears flowed down her cheeks uncontrollably. Zhang Xiu still said heartlessly, "There are many people in this world who are physically disabled but have strong wills. I believe that you will not be depressed because of this, and your songs will always support you." Xiao Xuetong cried even more fiercely. Zhang Xiu said, "I heard that when people cry, they get emotional. When they get emotional, their blood flow will accelerate, and the blood clot in the wound will accumulate more. The possibility of being lame will increase by 52%, 36%, 70%, 89%. Xiao Xuetong cried as she tried to stop crying. Her appearance was as pitiful as it could get. Seeing her like this, Zhang Xiu couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just teasing you. I'm already in such a miserable state, yet you're still trying to scare me. Do you even have any compassion? Are you even human?" Xiao Xuetong was furious. If it was any other time, she would definitely grab his hair and tear it into pieces. Let's see if he still dared to gloat over her misfortune. Zhang Xiu said, "I like to build my happiness on other people's pain. Especially beautiful girls." Xiao Xuetong said angrily, "Pervert." Zhang Xiu squatted down, gently held her injured foot, and said, "I'm going to take off your shoes. Bear with it." Because she changed into men's shoes, it was convenient to take them off. Then Zhang Xiu gently took off her socks. Xiao Xuetong's sparkling beautiful feet were exposed from the socks. Her skin was snow white, as if covered with a layer of luster. In the dim corridor, it was so captivating. Her toes were sparkling and translucent, like pink flower petals. Zhang Xiu held her foot in his hand. This script could be played with for a year. Xiao Xuetong felt her foot being grabbed by a big hand. A strange feeling came, and her pretty face was slightly hot. She secretly looked at Zhang Xiu and found that he was absent-minded. His eyes were blurred. This was too sneaky. She felt violated and said, "Close your eyes. You're not allowed to look." Zhang Xiu nodded and closed his eyes. He grabbed her foot and began to touch it. Spiritual cultivation? Where's your moral integrity? Xiao Xuetong was touched by him like this. She sensitively shrank her foot, but immediately didn't dare to move. It hurt as soon as she moved. Holding Xiao Xuetong's foot, which seemed to be carved out of jade, the tenacious will of spiritual cultivation was being tested. "Hey, do you know how to look?" I'm looking. Xiao Xuetong really didn't know whether this guy was really looking at her injury for her or taking advantage of her. She saw him touch her foot fiercely again. Although Zhang Xiu did not specialize in medical skills, his medical skills were far superior to those of the doctors on Earth. He held the small foot in his hand, and the bone and vein map of the ankle appeared in his mind. This was the skill of touching the bone. He said, "It's dislocated." When Xiao Xuetong fell, her foot was indeed twisted. "I'll help you fix it." Hearing that it was only a dislocation, Xiao Xuetong was relieved. She let him try first. Tomorrow, she would go to the hospital to take an X-ray to confirm whether it was fixed. Okay. Xiao Xuetong, such a big star, disappeared. Her manager, assistant, and security were all frantically looking for her. Her manager, Lai Jie, and her assistant, Pang Rou, happened to pass by this corridor. When they saw two black figures downstairs, they couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They wanted to take a closer look, because one of them seemed to be their little ancestor, Xiao Xuetong. At this moment, their little ancestor was on the ground, and there was a man on top of her. The position was quite hot and unbearable to look at. Lai Jie thought to herself, this little ancestor left so many people behind and sneaked out on her own just to have a tryst with this guy? She wouldn't be scared to death. If news of Xiao Xueqing's tryst with her lover was exposed, the public relations department wouldn't be able to handle it. Her fans would be heartbroken. She heard the man in the stairwell say, "I'm starting." Xiao Xuetong, okay. Zhang Xiu grabbed her ankle and pulled it out. The unprecedented pain made Xiao Xuetong scream involuntarily. It hurts. Lai Jie's heart was pounding when she heard this scream. Zhang Xiu's mind once again flashed with the image of Xiao Xuetong's bone network. It had already been connected, and it was very perfect. He hadn't done it in a long time, and he was a little rusty. He said, "Go in. It hurts. Bear with it a little more. You'll feel better in a while." Lai Jie's heart almost couldn't take it. She looked at her watch and noted it down. July 12, 2008. 9:45 p.m. What an important day, the most important day for a woman. She had grown up. At this moment, a group of reporters came to look for her. Lai Jie thought to herself, if the reporters saw this, it would be terrible. She hurriedly brought her assistant, Pang Rou, to greet them and blocked all the reporters. "Lai Jie, where's Xuetong? Why didn't she come out?" Lai Jie said, "She went back to the hotel to prepare for the celebration banquet. The concert this time was very successful, and the boss is very happy." Then, she led the reporters to the front. Zhang Xiu, who was in the corridor, said, "Okay, in less than a month, you should be able to walk as if you were flying." Xiao Xuetong really didn't feel that much pain, and it was fine even if she moved a little. Her upbringing and restraint made her say, "Thank you. I'm afraid that you'll feel inferior after being crippled." This bastard couldn't be polite to her. "Squat down," Zhang Xiu said. "What for?" Xiao Xuetong said, "Of course you have to carry me. How can I walk like this?" As she spoke, she was about to ride on Zhang Xiu's body. Zhang Xiu said, "No one has ever dared to ride me. I've always been the one riding people." Bah, hooligan. She really couldn't spit out anything from her mouth. "Are you going to carry me or not?" Zhang Xiu said, "No." Zhang Xiu had only carried one woman in his life, and he would only carry one woman in his life, and that was Cheng Lingran. That place belonged to her, and it belonged only to her. Xiao Xuetong said, "There are a lot of policemen and security guards outside. If you don't carry me, I'll tell them that you pushed me down the stairs." After saying that, she raised her chin slightly, looking very arrogant. "No way. I can carry you." After saying that, he gave Xiao Xueqing a bridal hug. Before she could cry out in surprise, her whole body was carried up and walked down the stairs. Xiao Xuetong didn't say anything. After a few steps, Xiao Xuetong asked, "Am I very heavy?" Spiritual Cultivation said, "It's okay." "Oh, I've been on a diet recently." Spiritual Cultivation's perception of strength was so accurate that it made people's hair stand on end. Xiao Xuetong weighed 95 kilograms, and she had exercised a lot tonight. She was about 1 kilogram dehydrated, and her height was exactly 1.7 meters. If she still wanted to lose weight, others wouldn't be able to live anymore. "Did I sing okay at the concert just now?" Spiritual Cultivation said, "I didn't really listen to it. I came with a friend. She likes your song. Is your friend male or female?" Chapter 107. Zhang Xiu came out of the stadium and said, "Where are you going?" "Your fans will be leaving the stadium soon. If they see you, it'll be interesting." Xiao Xuetong hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. Hurry, they're leaving already. Don't get caught." Zhang Xiu looked at Xiao Xuetong's pink face. Under the streetlights, it was so beautiful. She didn't try to hide it and acted natural and natural. He pretended that he couldn't walk and said, "Big sister, I'm carrying someone. How fast do you want me to walk?" "Please, please. It'll be bad if I'm blocked by fans." Zhang Xiu said, "Is this the attitude you should have when you're begging?" "I'm begging you." A pair of teary eyes stared at Zhang Xiu's face. She looked very pitiful. "Why did you run out?" Xiao Xuetong said, "You don't understand. You must think that being a star brings you a lot of money and glory. In fact, you lose even more. I feel like I'm locked in a cage. I can't go anywhere. I want to walk on the street without any restraint. I want to breathe the free air." Zhang Xiu said, "In the end, you died before you could succeed. You broke your leg before you even stepped out of the door. The outside world doesn't suit you. You'd better go back to the cage." "It was an accident. It was completely an accident." Xiao Xuetong refuted seriously. It was just that it was her first time and she lacked experience. Plus, she was too nervous. She just needed to practice more in the future. No one could deprive her of her right to pursue freedom. "Then where do you plan to go?" Xiao Xuetong shook her head. Even she didn't know where she was going. She just wanted to escape, but she didn't have a specific plan. She said, "You go ahead first. I'll think about it." They were in the suburbs. It was 7 or 8 kilometers to the city. If it weren't for Zhang Xiu's divine body, even the most robust man wouldn't be able to bear it. A 7-seater car suddenly rushed out from the roadside. Before the car stopped, the door was opened. A group of masked men rushed out and took Xiao Xuetong away without any explanation. Xiao Xuetong was stunned for a moment, then immediately realized what was going on. She shouted in horror, "Kidnapping! Quick, save me!" Zhang Xiu also realized that something was wrong. He thought that Xiao Xuetong's boss had sent people to take her back, but he noticed that these people were all wearing masks. They couldn't be people from Xiao Xuetong's company. Zhang Xiu rushed over and grabbed the half-open door. The robber couldn't close it anymore, but the driver stepped on the accelerator. Whoosh! The car rushed forward. Zhang Xiu couldn't stop the sudden burst of power and the car rushed out. Everything happened in a flash. The car had rushed out more than 10 meters. "Let me go! Save me!" Xiao Xuetong's terrified scream resounded in the suburban alley at night. Her pretty face was pale with fright. She didn't dare to think about what would happen to her if she fell into the hands of these kidnappers. "Shut up, bitch. Be careful or I'll kill you." The car was driving fast on the alley. "Look!" a robber exclaimed. All the robbers followed his gaze and saw a figure running fast behind the car. It was Zhang Xiu. He was chasing the car. "Damn, he's chasing a car. Who does he think he is? Idiot." The robber didn't care. It was too stupid for a man to chase a car. "Beauty Xiao, who is this guy? He's so desperate." A robber next to him said, He's just too stupid. Although Xiao Xuetong was terrified, she still looked back curiously. She saw Zhang Xiu running fast and chasing the car. Seeing this, Xiao Xuetong felt warm. A glimmer of hope was ignited in her desperate heart. He hadn't given up. Although Xiao Xuetong knew it was unrealistic. How could a man catch up with a car? But she still had hope. This guy is really good at running. A car could cover half a mile with a step of the gas. But a man had to run a kilometer at full speed. Who could stand it? He would be paralyzed. It's too damn strange. A robber looked at the dashboard in front of him. The car was going at 120 kilometers per hour, but he still couldn't get rid of the idiot. Damn! Did I see a ghost? The robbers were all stunned. If they knew that the current speed for spiritual cultivation was like an old man going downstairs for a walk after dinner, how would they feel? Go faster. Finally, when the car reached 150 kilometers per hour, Jiang Xiu's figure was getting farther and farther away. Phew! The robbers breathed a sigh of relief. One of them felt a chill run down his spine. We finally got rid of him. The robber driving the car was stunned for a while before saying, "That guy chased us for 5 or 6 miles, and his speed was over 100 kilometers per hour. Was it that long? It shouldn't be that long. Maybe it was just a while. He's good at running. Maybe he's a sports guy." Seeing Zhang Xiu disappear completely on the dim road, Xiao Xuetong closed her eyes in despair. She once thought that Zhang Xiu could catch up with her, but in the end, she said, "What are you doing?" "Let me go." One of the robbers said, "What are we doing?" "You'll know when we get there." "Let me go." "How much money do you want?" "Just name it." To Xiao Xuetong, money was just a worldly possession. She wouldn't feel bad no matter how much money was given. With her fame, she could earn it back quickly. She was worried that these robbers would violate her. That was her greatest fear. She didn't dare to think about it. Money. That person seemed to be the leader of the robbers. "Of course we need money. But how much money would be enough to match Miss Xu's net worth? 10 million? 50 million? But no matter how much money you have, we brothers will be clean after going around the casino. If Miss Xu could give us a few million to spend in the future, that would be great. But if we let you go, would you still give us money?" That was definitely impossible. So we thought of a way to make a movie for Miss Xu. It doesn't need to be too long. When the time comes, if Miss Xu doesn't remember to give us money, we'll upload the movie online. Xiao Xuetong naturally knew what this so-called movie was. In an instant, her pretty face turned snow white. The thing she was most worried about had happened. Whoosh! The car sped past. The robber driving the car blinked his eyes hard. He saw a person standing on the roadside in front of him. He looked very similar to the kid just now, but the car was very fast and sped past him in an instant. No, that's impossible. He was driving on a straight road. Zhang Xiu had no reason to overtake him. The car smoothly entered the city and slowed down to about 80 kilometers per hour. But at the traffic light in front of them, a figure stood there. It was Zhang Xiu again. The robber driving the car's eyes almost popped out. He must have seen wrongly. The car continued to move forward. At the next traffic light, Zhang Xiu appeared again. He appeared on the left side just now, but this time, Zhang Xiu appeared on the right side. He was holding a cup of coffee in his hand. It seemed that he had bought it on the way. It seemed to be the brand of Human Skull's coffee. He looked at the robber with a smile on his face. Gulp. The robber driving the car felt that his throat had become very dry. He was not thirsty, but it was caused by fear. The extreme fear in his heart caused it. It can't be. Cold sweat continued to drip from his forehead. Don't scare yourself. He took a deep breath and decided to focus on driving. When he looked up, he saw a person standing on the overpass in the distance. It was that kid again. He was still holding the coffee from Human Skull's coffee. The robber driving the car's eyes almost popped out. When the car reached the foot of the overpass, he plucked up the courage to look up. At this glance, he saw Zhang Xiu's face clearly. His heart completely collapsed. It was that kid. He suddenly braked. He didn't care whether he was in the middle of the road or not. He directly pushed the door open and rushed out of the car. He screamed, "Ghost!" The accomplices in the car were startled by the sudden scene. The robber leader even cursed. Who would have thought that when he looked up, he was also completely stunned. In an instant, there was dead silence in the car. The man standing on the bridge that day had cold eyes. There was a faint steam rising from the coffee cup in his hand. However, it looked so strange in the night. Chapter 108. Without a driver, the car lost control. One could imagine the consequences. With the skills of the robbers in the car, they could rush to the driver's seat and take control of the car. However, they were all stunned. How could a human be faster than a car? At this moment, they also suspected that the person chasing their car on the side of the road was not a human, but a ghost. A righteous ghost wanted to save people? What happened next scared them out of their wits. They saw Zhang Xiu holding the railing of the overpass with one hand and jumping off the overpass. What the F***ck, it was more than 5 meters high, and there were cars coming and going. Even if they didn't fall to their deaths, they would be killed by the car. And he said he wasn't a ghost? The robbers didn't realize that the car had lost control and was crashing forward. When they realized it, they panicked. However, it was too late. The car was already uncontrollably crashing forward. With a loud bang, Zhang Xiu landed from the sky and pressed his palm on the front of the car. A huge force burst out and blocked the car. The metal of the front of the car was dented, and it was forcefully held in place. The robbers deserved to die, but Xiao Xueqing was still inside. If they hit her, the consequences would be unimaginable. It exploded. It exploded. Oh my God! The robbers were completely stunned. One hand was holding the car? And he said he wasn't a ghost? Bang bang. The car was fine, but the car behind it was miserable. The driver couldn't react at all. After a sudden braking, the back of the car was hit. One car hit another, and 5 cars hit the back of the car in a row. It was a tragic sight. For a moment, the sound of the horn was incessant. Zhang Xiu opened the car door. The robbers inside looked at him in horror. "You really have guts. You actually dared to snatch someone from my hands?" "Ghost, ghost." The group of robbers who never believed in ghosts were so scared that their legs trembled. They didn't even have the courage to resist. Even though they were in the downtown area and were surrounded by people, they didn't feel any sense of security. Because they knew that they were targeted by this ghost. Sirens could be heard from afar. "It's the police. The police are here." In the past, when they heard the siren, they gnashed their teeth in hatred. But now, when they heard the siren, they were so happy that it was as if they heard that their mother was here. "Police, save me. Help." From the beginning to the end, Xiao Xuetong didn't understand what was going on because she was trapped in the back seat and couldn't see the situation in front of her clearly. She only heard the driver shout, "Ghost!" and then he jumped out of the car. Then the car lost control and stopped suddenly. She was caught off guard and hit her head on the seat in front of her. She was in a high degree of dizziness. In a daze, she seemed to see Zhang Xiu and then she fainted. "Aren't you robbers?" Even if they were robbers, they still needed the righteous police to save them. He would rather go to jail than be targeted by this ghost. It was too King scary. When Zhang Xiu saw that Xiao Xueqing didn't move at all, he was shocked. Did something happen to her? He didn't have time to deal with the robbers and rushed to the car hurriedly. He held her hand and found that her pulse was normal. She must have fainted. The robbers were so scared that they all jumped out of the car window, but none of them dared to escape. It was said that it was useless to run away after being targeted by a ghost. They were now begging to go to jail. One by one, the robbers were actually willing to wait for the police to come and arrest them. In their hearts, they were even praying that the police would come faster. This time, the police were absolutely helpful. The main reason was that when the kidnapping happened on the roadside, someone saw it. Although he couldn't see clearly that it was Xiao Xuetong who was kidnapped, he was very sure that it had happened. After hesitating for a while, he called the police. The Zhongqing police immediately pulled up the surveillance video. It was indeed a kidnapping. Then, they kept an eye on the car all the way, so they came really quickly. "Don't move! Don't move!" The criminal police in the police car rushed down and surrounded the 7-seater car with guns in their hands. The robbers were already very cooperative. They knelt down on both knees and raised their hands high. They heaved a long sigh of relief. "We're saved! We're saved!" One of the police officers rushed into the car of the robbers. Then, he saw Zhang Xiu and Xiao Xuetong. His gaze immediately fell on Xiao Xuetong because he knew that the kidnapped person was a girl. But when he saw her, he was suddenly shocked. It was actually the famous celebrity Xiao Xuetong. At this moment, he felt a surge of blood surging up. He had made a great contribution. The hostage he saved was actually Xiao Xuetong. "Don't move. Put your hands on your head and squat down," Zhang Xiu said. "I'm not a robber. I'm saving someone." The police officer was in his 30s and was a vice captain. He was very brave and had a lot of combat experience. He roared loudly, "I'll say it again. Put your hands on your head and squat down." That angry gaze and the hand holding the gun tightened. It seemed that if Zhang Xiu didn't cooperate, he would shoot. Zhang Xiu had no choice but to raise his hand. The police officer didn't provoke Zhang Xiu anymore. "Get out of the car." His first priority now was to ensure Xiao Xuetong's safety. As long as she was safe, then this mission would be completed. The hostage he saved was Xiao Xuetong, a popular A-list actress. With her influence, it would be unreasonable if he didn't get promoted. "See? They're all wearing masks on their heads. They're the robbers. I'm saving someone." Zhang Xiu was really anxious about the intelligence of these police officers. At this time, Xiao Xuetong was unconscious and couldn't testify for him. "Cut the crap. Put the handcuffs on him." Zhang Xiu was a little annoyed. He was kind enough to save someone, but he was wronged. They even wanted to handcuff him. He decided to reveal his identity. Otherwise, it might really be ugly. "Is this how you do things? I forced the car to stop. I caught the robbers. If it wasn't for me, would those people be fools? Would they just stand there and let you catch them?" Police officer Chen Bin was also surprised. When they arrived, the robbers were already kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. He believed Zhang Xiu's words, but how could he let a commoner take away such a big credit? "Humph, they don't know what they are talking about. We have already set up an inescapable net. We blocked all the escape routes." Only then did the robbers surrender. Zhang Xiu froze for a moment and frowned. Although he was in the car just now, he knew the situation outside clearly. The police caught up from behind, and there were no cars coming from other roads. This showed that this person was lying. Thinking that the person who was saved was Xiao Xuetong, Zhang Xiu's heart was like a mirror. It turned out that he wanted to rob the credit. "What? You have nothing to say? I think you're the kidnapper, and the mastermind." Zhang Xiu's eyes were cold. "Say it again?" Zhang Xiu didn't care about such a credit at all. To him, it was completely useless. However, this person actually wanted to frame him as the mastermind of the robbers in order to get the credit. "You're still giving me a hard time. Cuff him." The police officers on the side didn't hold back anymore. They directly barbecued Zhang Xiu and put him in the police car. In the interrogation room of the police station, Chan Bin personally interrogated Zhang Xiu in order to avoid any accidents. This case must be confirmed. This credit must not slip through his fingers. Name, age, Zhang Xiu, 17. Where do you live? The news spread quickly. Xiao Xuetong's boss, agent, and lawyer rushed to the police station as soon as possible. The situation was like an earthquake, followed by hundreds of paparazzi. For a moment, the police station was surrounded. "How is Xiao Xiao now? Is she okay?" As for the police of Zhongqing City, even the housing bureau rushed over as soon as possible. This was a big matter. The kidnapping of a big star probably had a greater impact than the kidnapping of a leader. More importantly, the matter had been resolved successfully. This time, the police of Zhongqing City had shown their faces. Everyone, we have no comment. The housing bureau immediately went to the interrogation room. When Chen Bin saw the big boss coming over, he immediately stood up. The housing bureau waved his hand and said, "How is it? Have you explained everything?" Chen Bin said, "The housing bureau came out. That kid kept saying that he was the one who saved her." The housing bureau said, "Bullsh*T." Hearing this, Chen Bin understood and immediately had an idea. But he's very stubborn. No matter how stubborn he is, it's useless. Do you know what to do? Xiao Xuetong's influence is very big. After the case is out, the whole country will probably know about it by tomorrow morning. Our Zhongqing City will become the focus of the country. Do you understand? How can such a big star be saved by a little kid? 7 or 8 robbers, who would believe that? The housing bureau said, "Do you still need me to teach you what to do?" Chapter 109. Chen Bin returned to the interrogation room with a relaxed expression. With the housing bureau supporting him, he had nothing to worry about. He looked at Zhang Xiu with a hint of pity in his eyes. It seemed that Zhang Xiu was destined to be the scapegoat. Confess. Don't be stubborn. It's useless. We've already asked clearly. Zhang Xiu said, "What clearly? Are you trying to wrong me? We never wrong a good person, but we will never let a bad person go." Chen Bin leaned forward and said in a low voice, "The robbers have already confessed. You're their accomplice." Zhang Xiu narrowed his eyes. Was he trying to frame him? Confess and we'll be lenient. Resist and we'll be strict. Chen Bin said, "Kid, don't be so shameless." Still not confessing? Zhang Xiu said, "I didn't do it." What do you want me to confess? Chen Bin said, "Be honest. Your accomplices have already confessed. They've all confessed. It's useless for you to resist." What did they confess? Chen Bin said, "Don't play dumb. They've already admitted that you're the mastermind." In fact, the group of people were still in the interrogation room, terrified. They were shouting, "Ghost! There's a ghost!" Zhang Xiu said with great interest, "So it's useless whether I confess or not?" Chen Bin said in a very cold voice, "Yes. But if you confess, your sentence will be reduced." Zhang Xiu thought for a moment and asked, "How many years will I be sentenced to?" "If you ask for leniency, 3 or 4 years. Zhang Xiu said, "Are you sure you won't regret what I said?" Ha ha ha. Chen Bin could already see the position of captain waving at him. Regret. He would regret if he didn't cook. He said, "It's the duty of the police to crack down on criminals. Even if we face revenge, we won't regret it." Zhang Xiu said, "All right, I'll explain." Chen Bin was overjoyed when he heard this. He thought that Zhang Xiu would resist stubbornly. Although he could still make the case a dead case, it would take a lot of effort and a lot of risk. It was best if he admitted it himself, because there was no risk. He thought to himself, "This brat is quite tactful." "All right, tell me what's going on. Who instigated you?" "Tell me everything," Zhang Xiu said. "I am indeed the kidnapper. The one who ordered us to kidnap Xiao Xuetong is called Old Gu." "How do you communicate?" Zhang Xiu said, "Through the phone. His number is 158. The more Chen Bin listened, the more he felt that something was amiss. This kid was really a robber. He was so excited that he accidentally got it right. This time, he was going to be rich. He had suffered in the position of deputy captain for 7 years. How many 7 years did he have in his life? It was all because he had no background and no achievements. Now that he had saved Xiao Xuetong, he had one face for Zhongqing, no, for the entire Jiangnan province's police force. There was no reason for him not to be promoted. Then how did you get involved in the accident? Zhang Xiu said. Unequal distribution of the loot, internal strife. Sure enough, Chen Bin said, unequal distribution of the loot. That's right. Continue to explain. 10 minutes later, Chan Bin appeared in the office of the Housing Bureau. Housing Bureau. He said that this is the phone number of the mastermind, 158. Good, well done. The Housing Bureau personally ordered, immediately lock onto the location of the phone. Things were often so coincidental. The phone number that Zhang Xiu reported was the private number that Gu Shu had left for him during the day. If he had returned to Hangzhou today, the police system would have been able to lock onto the residence of Jiangnan No. 1. They would not have dared to act rashly. However, Gu Shu did not return to Hangzhou directly. He had some matters to attend to in Zhongqing and had to stay the night in Zhongqing. Housing Bureau. We have locked onto the location of the phone. It's at Haojiang Hotel. Chen Bin, you will personally lead the team to arrest the culprit. There must be no mistakes. Yes. The police car arrived at Haojiang Hotel. Chen Bin contacted the Housing Bureau again. In order to lock onto the exact location, he needed the phone to be in the middle of a call. The Housing Bureau took out his phone and made a call. Jiangnan Frontier was already asleep at this time. He did not usually pick up calls, but this was his private number. He picked it up and said, "Hello." He was still in a daze from his sleep. Before he could say anything, the Housing Bureau's dignified voice sounded, "Hello, old Gu." There was even a hint of mockery in his voice. In Gu Shu's memory, no one had ever dared to speak to him in such a tone. He frowned. Furthermore, he had been sleeping soundly when he was woken up by a phone call. His anger flared up. "Who are you?" "Who am I?" "Ha ha ha." The Housing Bureau laughed. He had already received the signal. Chan Bin had already locked onto the location. He said, "I'm investigating a case. You are now related to a kidnapping case. You better cooperate with us. Otherwise..." Gu Shu suppressed his anger and asked, "Otherwise what? Do you know what kind of crime kidnapping is? The sentence is more than 10 years in prison." "Fine, then you come and arrest me." Jiangnan Frontier had never been as angry as he was at this moment. He felt as if his whole body was about to burst into flames. However, he still maintained a calm tone. No one could hear the anger in his heart at this moment. "I'm at Haojiang Hotel, 1331 Presidential Suite." The Housing Bureau was stunned for a moment. After a while, he reacted. Damn, he had seen arrogant robbers before, but he had never seen someone so arrogant. He actually dared to challenge him in public. "I'll do as you wish." Chen Bin, who was already blocking the door, received the order from the Housing Bureau. He broke down the door. Gu Shu, who was in the room, hung up the phone. He was furious. What the hell? How dare the investigation involve him in Jiangnan Frontier's case? Gu Shu had thought about it. When he returned to Hangzhou tomorrow, he would take care of all those bastards. Bang! A loud sound rang out. The luxurious door of the hotel's presidential suite was blown open by a bomb. Gu Shu was shocked. Then, he saw fully armed police officers rushing in. "Don't move." The brave Deputy Captain Chen Bin rushed up to Gu Shu and pressed him down. Gu Shu had not exercised for many years. In addition, he was old. After being pressed down so roughly, he screamed. "I told you to scream." Deputy Captain Chen Bin flipped the handle of his gun and hit Gu Shu's head, making him dizzy. "Take him away." At this time, Deputy Captain Chen Bin's heart was filled with pride. Done, the hostage was rescued, and the main culprit was arrested. Today's matter was done perfectly. He even waved his fist at his subordinates. It was the first time in his life that Gu Shu was arrested and brought to the police station. One could imagine how angry the people of Jiangnan Frontier were at this time. If there was a grenade in his hand, he would definitely blow up this group of bastards. He was livid and did not make a sound. It was so quiet that it was scary. Before a storm came, there was usually silence. He was arranged in a secret room, and there was a row of people standing next to him. He was familiar with this procedure. This was the police's identification procedure. And our spiritual cultivation was arranged to identify people. He said, "You really caught him." Chen Bin sneered, "Does he have 3 heads and 6 arms? Can't we catch him?" "You overestimate him." The spiritual cultivation really wanted to give him a big compliment. "You're very efficient." Through the glass, Jiang Xiu saw a man in his 50s with gray hair, wearing a white vest, and a big bump on his head. If it was not Gu Shu, who else could it be? At this time, the Jiangnan frontier was a bit miserable. His face was dull, and he did not even have a pair of shoes on his feet. He moved twice in pain. "Which one is old Gu? Point him out." Jiang Xiu pointed at Gu Shu without any loyalty and said, "It's him. He's the one who ordered me to kidnap Xiao Xueqing." At this time, the housing bureau came. He was in high spirits. Just now, Jiang Chengshu called him and gave him a big reward. At this time, he was already on his way to the police station. He had to pay close attention to this situation. "How is it?" Chen Bin said excitedly, "We didn't catch the wrong person. Everything is settled." The housing bureau nodded in satisfaction and gave him a look of appreciation. "This young man is not bad. Just wait for the promotion." Also, he wanted to see who was so arrogant and dared to challenge him in public. When he came to the front of the glass and saw Gu Shu standing in the cell, he felt as if his brain had been smashed. He was so stunned that the cigarette between his fingers fell to the ground. Chen Bin definitely did not know Gu Shu, but the housing bureau knew him. At this moment, he felt that his whole world was about to collapse. That's him. He's the mastermind. Mastermind your head. Chapter 110. The director of the housing bureau looked at Chen Bin as if he had seen a ghost. He stared at Chen Bin and wanted to bite him to death. This person is the mastermind? Chen Bin nodded excitedly. Yes, it's him. This person is very cunning. He personally planned this earth-shattering kidnapping case. He's very bold. He actually dared to target Miss Xiao Xuetong. The director of the housing bureau wanted to cry but had no tears. "Do you know what you're doing?" Chen Bin straightened himself up and saluted in a heroic manner. His tone was resolute as he said, "Serve the people." What the F***CK? The director of the housing bureau wanted to tear this guy apart. His heart was filled with despair. Looking at Gu Daji in the identification room, the director of the housing bureau thought to himself, "No wonder he was so arrogant when I called him. In Jiangnan, if he wasn't arrogant, who would be? Do you know who he is?" Chen Bin said, "I know. He's the mastermind, old Gu." Old Gu? Wasn't that old Gu? Jiang Xiu looked at this scene with great interest. From Fang Yizong's expression, he knew that the director of the housing bureau recognized Gu Daji. As the #1 police force in Jiangqing City, there was no way he wouldn't know about the Jiangnan frontier. This was going to be interesting. Since you've done this, don't blame me for returning the favor. How are you sure that he's the mastermind? Arresting someone from the Jiangnan frontier as a kidnapper was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Now, not to mention using the credit of solving Xiao Xuetong's case to get promoted, even protecting Wu Sha was a problem. Looking closely, there was a big bump on Gu Shu's head. It was obvious that he had been hit. It's over. It's over. Not only did he mistakenly arrest someone from the Jiangnan frontier, he even hit him. Sigh. The housing bureau hit his head hard and squatted down in despair. He really hoped that this was just a nightmare and that nothing would happen after he woke up. Chen Bin finally felt that something was wrong. He asked, "Housing bureau, what's wrong?" The head of the housing bureau looked up at him and roared angrily, "Hurry up and release him." "This?" Fang Yizong roared. "Do you fucking know who he is? Don't you even read the political news on a daily basis?" If Chen Bin had read the news on a daily basis, how could he not know who this person was? If he had recognized Gu Shu at the hotel, the situation could still be salvaged. Now, even he was in trouble. "Chen Bin, just wait for your dismissal and investigation." He stood up angrily and rushed out without looking back. He wanted to get Gu Shu out. Housing Bureau. Chen Bin was confused. He tried hard to recall everything that had happened since he started handling the case. He didn't seem to have done anything wrong. He asked, "Who is this person?" Zhang Xiu said, "Jiangnan Province, Provincial Party Committee Secretary, Gu Daji, Gu Shu." Boom. Chen Bin froze on the spot. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded. You lied to me?" Zhang Xiu said, "Didn't you want to wrongly accuse me? Then I'll let you do it." Chen Bin glared at him angrily. He had arrested someone from the Jiangnan frontier as a robber. Prepare to receive the wrath of Jiangnan No. 1. Chen Bin's mind went blank. He was shrouded in endless despair. His body swayed and he almost couldn't stand still. He suddenly thought of something and rushed out. Through the glass, he could see that Gu Daji had been escorted out. Not long after, someone came to uncuff Zhang Xiu and apologized to Zhang Xiu. Gu Daji sat there with a cold face. There was a big bump on his head, but he had already put on his clothes. He, Gu Daji, had lived for more than 50 years and had never been so humiliated like this. There were no less than 20 people gathered in the large surveillance hall of the police station. However, there was not a single sound. It was as silent as death. Only the faint sound of electromagnetism could be heard. The Provincial Party Committee of Jiangnan, and the people involved, Fong Tsongi and Chen Bin, lowered their heads like criminals, waiting for the verdict. Zhang Xiu walked in. Gu Shu stood up. He squeezed out a bitter smile and said, "This is really embarrassing. Today I, as a citizen of the Jiangnan frontier, have lost all face." Zhang Xiu said, "This noble one's face is also gone." Gu Shu asked, "What exactly is going on?" Zhang Xiu sat down and asked, "They still haven't given an explanation?" "That's right. How would they dare to say it? This noble one saved them, but how could they let this noble one get away with such a big merit? Therefore, they thought of framing this noble one as a robber. That way, no one would fight with them for the merit." Gu Shu's face suddenly turned ashen. He originally thought that Zhang Xiu was deliberately embarrassing him. Only now did he know that the ones who really embarrassed him were the police officers under his command. What? In today's society, there's still such a thing. Damn it to the extreme. He slammed his hand on the table. The files on the table fell to the ground. The people around him were scared out of their wits. This matter was serious. It was simply a disgrace to the entire police force. The Housing Bureau and Chen Bin were so scared that they almost fell to the ground. Fong Yitsong said, "Gu Shu, all of these tasks were carried out by Vice Captain Chen Bin. I am responsible for not supervising well. I didn't know the inside story." Chen Bin's face was ashen. Gu Shu said, "Strip him of his police uniform." "No." Chen Bin screamed in horror. In order to climb up the ranks, he suffered so much, took so many risks, and made so many contributions. It wasn't easy for him to reach the position of vice captain. How could he lose that little bit of power just like that? "Gu Shu, you can't just listen to his words. When I arrived at the scene, he was in the car. He was still holding Xiao Xuetong hostage. Of course he's the prime suspect. What did I do wrong? Gu Shu wants to remove me from my position. I can't accept it. Maybe this person is the kidnapper." Gu Daji was so angry that he laughed. "Do you know who the kidnapper you're talking about is?" Chen Bin shook his head. "He's the famous Zhang Luoxia in Zhongqing." "Mr. Zhang." The whole police station was in an uproar. "Zhang Luoxia. Mr. Zhang." It exploded. Chen Bin was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. He looked at Zhang Xiu in disbelief. "Mr. Zhang? The Mr. Zhang who stood at the peak of Zhongqing and was sought after by all the tycoons in Zhongqing?" Gu Daji said, "You dare say that Mr. Zhang is the kidnapper?" If this person was Mr. Jiang, how could such a big shot do such a thing, let alone appear at the crime scene? No. Chen Bin's last strand of nerve snapped. He screamed like a madman. You set me up, you set me up. If Zhang Xiu had revealed his identity earlier and called a big shot to bail him out, this wouldn't have happened. It was all his fault. I'll fight you to the death. He rushed toward Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu smiled coldly. His hands were handcuffed. Chen Bin was no match for him. Moreover, he could move freely now. With a bang, Chen Bin's entire person flew out backward. He fell 6 or 7 meters away. He spat out blood but still stood up. His head kept twitching and he looked a little crazy. He said, "You ruined me. I won't let you have it easy." Suddenly, he took out his pistol. Whoosh! The hall was in an uproar. Everyone was frightened and retreated. At this time, Chen Bin had completely lost his mind. A few of his lackeys shouted, "Protect Gu Shu." "You want to kill me?" Zhang Xiu's tone was calm. Instead of retreating, he walked toward him step by step. "Do you think I don't dare to shoot?" Chen Bin roared. At this moment, the atmosphere was extremely tense. Everyone looked at Zhang Xiu. It was rumored that this person had extraordinary strength. However, no matter how high his martial arts cultivation was, he couldn't block a gun. Moreover, the two of them were so close to each other. "Shoot!" Zhang Xiu shouted angrily. Bang! Chen Bin was provoked and immediately pulled the trigger. Everyone screamed again. Gu Daji's eyes widened. He actually shot. He didn't expect things to get out of hand. In the end, someone died. Zhang Luoxia was really courting death. Chen Bin's emotions were unstable, but he still provoked him. What was the difference between that and courting death? However, what happened next caused everyone's pupils to shrink. A copper bullet hung half a meter in front of Zhang Xiu. At this moment, it was as if time had stopped. Upon closer inspection, they found that Zhang Xiu's body was shrouded in a faint light shield. On the light shield, waves of light rippled with the bullet as the center, but it couldn't break through the light shield. This. Zhang Xiu reached out and took the bullet in his hand. Ghost, ghost. Chen Bin then remembered why those robbers said that they had met a ghost. Gu Daji was also dumbfounded by what he saw. Oh my God! Chapter 111. Everyone in the police station was dumbfounded. This scene had completely overturned their worldview. How could they deal with someone who was not even afraid of bullets and even stopped the bullets in the air? What kind of existence was this? Even the government felt great pressure when facing him. In the vast Hua nation, there were not many people who could do anything to him. "You want to shoot me?" Chen Bin could no longer suppress the fear in his heart and knelt down with a thud. Die! Zhang Xiu flicked his finger lightly, and the bullet in his hand flew out, bringing with it a terrifying ray of light. With a poochie sound, the bullet pierced through Chen Bin's head. It felt like a pistol with a silencer. Blood burst out from between Zhang Xiu's eyebrows and came out from the back of his head. Suddenly, his pupils dilated, and his eyes lost their luster. His body fell forward and fell into a pool of blood. He died on the spot. Gasp! Everyone present gasped and stared blankly at what they saw in front of them. It was too shocking. He could kill someone like that. What made his mother even more shocked was that this person was really daring. In the police station, in front of so many police officers and leaders, especially Gu Shu, he dared to kill someone right in front of him. They all saw Zhang Xiu kill someone, but none of them dared to say anything, let alone accuse Zhang Xiu. Did they want to die? Moreover, even if they did, how could the case be decided? How could they prove that he caught Chen Bin's bullet with his bare hands and then threw it out to kill Chen Bin? Besides, Chen Bin was the one who wanted to kill him first. Zhang Xiu sat down again, not caring about their gazes. Gu Shu, you have to give me an explanation for this matter, right? Gu Daji had long heard that Mr. Zhang's methods were vicious. Those who offended him did not have a good ending. Today he witnessed it with his own eyes. He could have kept Mr. Jiang alive, but he still killed him. He could not help but be wary of Jiang Xiu. Everyone was afraid of such a ruthless character. However, Gu Daji, who was from the Jiangnan frontier, was not an ordinary person. He quickly calmed down and said, "Punish all the people involved." Absolutely not. The faces of all the police officers present changed greatly. Fong Tsongyi cried out involuntarily, "Gu Shu, we're innocent, innocent. Withdraw all of them." Arresting him, the Jiangnan No. 1, was enough to get them all fired. Moreover, he had offended Mr. Jiang. Of course, he had to appease Jiang Xiu's anger. In his heart, he was still planning to tell his brother that Jiang Xiu's divine ability had directly fixed the bullet in the air. This ability was really too shocking. Fortunately, they had coincidentally seen Jiang Xiu's divine power today. Otherwise, the Gu family would have missed the opportunity to meet such a powerful expert. Mr. Jiang is quite satisfied with the way things have been handled. Of course. With a thump, Fong Tsongyi's strength seemed to have been sucked out of his body. His body went limp and fell to the ground. The throne of the bureau chief, which he had worked so hard for so many years, was lost early in the morning. "Bureau chief, bad news." A police officer rushed in from outside and stopped mid-sentence. He saw that the vice-captain was dead in the hall. The tables and chairs were all over the floor, and the bureau chief was also lying on the ground. "What happened?" Gu Shu asked. "Oh, it's like this. My colleagues at the hospital sent news that Xiao Xuetong has disappeared again." He paused and said, "Her disappearance is very strange. She went out with a snake." "Snake? I have a video here." As he spoke, he plugged the USB into the computer and played the video. In the video, Xiao Xuetong was wearing a patient's gown. She was in a daze, and her eyes were dull. She walked out of the elevator, and there was indeed a snake crawling in front of her. Jiang Xiu saw that the image of the demonic god on Xiao Xuetong's face was much clearer than before, and it was emitting a terrifying power of the demonic curse. He looked at the snake again, and there was a black aura in its eyes. It was very evil. Why does it look like she's been possessed? To be precise, she was indeed possessed. Organize the people immediately and rescue Miss Xiao Xuetong as soon as possible. Gu Shu ordered. He was a high-ranking official, so he naturally did not care about such a small matter. However, he was here, so he naturally gave the orders. However, it was the police station's job to organize the rescue. Yes. The deputy bureau chief on the side responded, and then immediately organized a special team to solve the case. "Mr. Jiang, I've been nagging all day. Let me invite you to a place to sit down and have a drink to calm you down," Gu Daji said. "Consider it my apology." Jiang Xiu said, "Gu Shu, you'd better go to the hospital to have your injuries checked first." This time, he did not really want to accompany Chang Lingsu to watch the concert. He came because of the demonic god behind Xiao Xueqing. First, he sent people to kidnap Xiao Xuetong. Then, he used witchcraft to get rid of Xiao Xuetong. Jiang Xiu had reason to believe that the person behind all this should be the same person, and it should be the same demonic god. Gu Shu touched the wound on his forehead and felt a little embarrassed. "It was really embarrassing. I'm going to the hospital too. Let's go together." Naturally, Gu Shu would not refuse. Jiang Changshu, who was on the side, quickly asked someone to prepare a car and sent the two big shots to the car. After Gu Shu arrived at the hospital, the relevant injuries were checked, and Jiang Xiu went to the ward where Xiao Xuetong was. When he arrived, the deputy bureau chief, Wu Rong, was checking the room with someone. For the police, the most troublesome thing was to encounter a supernatural case. It was completely beyond their scope, and there was nothing they could do. They could only try their best helplessly. "Who's there?" When the police saw Jiang Xiu barging into the ward, they loudly tried to stop him. "Mr. Jiang." When Wu Rong saw Jiang Xiu, he hurriedly ran over. "I'm here to take a look," Wu Rong said. "That couldn't be better. We have never encountered such a case before. We have no clue, and we don't know where to start investigating. Zhang Xiu did not answer him and walked straight in. His eyes narrowed slightly into a line. The room in his field of vision changed, but there did not seem to be any abnormalities. Finally, his gaze fell on the bed, and there was nothing different. However, when his gaze fell on the bed, there was a straight line of twisted black fog on the ground, as if a snake had crawled past. He walked all the way out of the black fog. This snake was very spiritual and very intelligent. It actually crawled along the corner of the wall. If it did not chase out of the room, the black fog would often be difficult to notice. The corner of the wall was dim to begin with. He went all the way down the stairs and walked to the open space of the hospital. He could not help but look up at the sky and said to himself, "No wonder. So today is the 9-in day." The full moon in the sky was covered with a layer of halo, and the entire sky was gloomy. "Mr. Jiang, did you find anything?" Wu Rong, who was beside him, asked. "Follow this noble one." After saying that, Zhang Xiu continued to walk forward. He walked all the way to the forest in front of him. There were two people standing outside the forest. One of them was Xiao Xuetong's manager, Lai Jie, and the other was a middle-aged man with an extraordinary aura. Wu Rong recognized them. "What's going on?" Suddenly, a shrill, beast-like voice came from the forest. Wu Rong turned pale with fright. He pulled out his gun and was about to rush forward. Don't go in." As soon as he finished speaking, a person ran out of the forest. This person was wearing a Taoist robe. He was actually a mage. "I can't. This monster has already become a demon." The man said, "Really? Boss Wang, I'm really not lying to you. It's just that this kind of thing, even if I told you, you would find it hard to believe. That snake has already become a demon. Since my grandmaster, generations of us have taken it as our responsibility to kill this demon. It has been more than 100 years since then." Lai Jie said in disbelief. 100 years? Wu Rong also didn't believe it. For Zhang Xiu to stop the bullet and then throw it out to kill people, this was all within the scope of his understanding. He was a martial arts expert. But for a snake to become a demon, this was simply absurd. Was he filming a new white lady? Moreover, Miss Xiao Xuetong has been targeted by a demon. A voice sounded, "A snake needs 500 years to become a demon." That wasn't a snake cultivating to become a demon, but a yin snake. Its evil aura was imbued into the snake's corpse and it was refined using a secret method. Insignificant skill. Hearing this, the mage looked towards the voice and saw a young man slowly walking over with his hands behind his back. His gaze fell on the forest, and his eyes sparkled under the night sky. He was very elegant. However, this tone was too big. Not to mention whether or not it was as he had judged, that it was only a yin snake. Refining a yin snake could have caused 3 generations of his ancestors to die an unnatural death. How could this be a small trick? You're scared of a mere yin snake? Chapter 112. This sorcerer was not very famous, but he boasted that he was a true defender of the law. He was a person with real abilities. When he saw a kid who was still wet behind his ears spouting such arrogant words, he could not help but frown. "Who are you? How arrogant of you!" Although he was not famous, his ancestor was extremely famous. His surname was Zhang, and he came from Dragon Tiger Path Mountain. His ancestor was the famous Taoist master Zhang Tianling. Naturally, he was also very arrogant. "This is Mr. Zhang." The sorcerer snorted coldly. At his age, of course, he would announce his master's name when he went out. How dare he call himself Mr. Zhang? How shameless! He said stiffly, "I've never heard of him." Not only him, even the man beside him and Lai Jie had never heard of him. They were not from Jiang City. In fact, outside of Jiang City, there were not many people who knew of Zhang Xiu. After all, he had just risen not long ago. Perhaps some people in the martial arts world had heard of him. Mr. Zhang, but... Wu Rong saw that the sorcerer was very disdainful of Zhang Xiu. He wanted to tell him how important Mr. Zhang was in Zhang City and even Jiangnan Province. However, he was stopped by Zhang Xiu. He shook his head lightly. "Master Chong, what should we do now? Hurry up and think of a way. Xiao Xiao is still inside." Wu Rong was shocked. "Miss Xu is in the forest?" Lai Jie did not want to admit it, but at this point, she had to admit it. She said, "Yes, our Xiao Xiao seems to have been targeted by some evil spirit. After she became famous, there were a lot of strange things happening to her. First, she made a messy altar. After we banned her, she often sleepwalked. Moreover, she would kneel on the balcony and pray to heaven and earth. She would also talk non-stop. This time, we invited a sorcerer over. Someone wanted to kidnap her again. After the kidnapping, I was possessed again." Elder Sister Li frowned, and the man beside her also had a worried look on his face. He was the boss of Xiao Xueqing's company, and this little ancestor was a money tree. Why would such a problem happen to such a young girl? Master Chong said, "Miss Xu sleepwalked to the balcony and kowtowed. Was it always a full moon night?" "This." Lai Jie muttered to herself, "I didn't pay attention to that, but now that you've mentioned it, it seems to be the case. This is called moon worship. It's an ancient sorcery." Zhang Xiu couldn't help laughing. Although he didn't laugh out loud, Master Chong still saw the smile on Zhang Xiu's face. This made Master Chong very unhappy. "What's the meaning of that smile? Are you doubting my words? This mister seems to have a different opinion?" Zhang Xiu already knew that Xiao Xuetong was the medium through which the demonic god obtained the power of divine Tao. Naturally, he knew that it was not the worship of the moon, not to mention that the worship of the moon was not witchcraft. According to Lai Jie, Xiao Xuetong had made a messy shrine. Zhang Xiu suspected that was the beginning of everything. However, the shrine was banned by Lai Jie and the others because it was regarded as evil. The evil god then used the sacrificial method and collected it every once in a while, using the sacrificial method to gather the faith of the divine Tao. Master Chong retorted, "Nonsense. You're so young, yet you know what the sacrificial method is and what the belief of the divine Tao is. Those are all God's servant techniques, mysterious and profound. Now Miss Xu has been bewitched. The other party is using all evil techniques." Zhang Xiu shook his head gently. "Boss Wang, I've always been a lone wolf when it comes to slaying demons and devils. I've never cooperated with anyone because I'm afraid that some people who are fishing for fame will not only not be of help, but will also confuse me and make me more of a hindrance. If anyone wants to interfere, I'll have to leave." Boss Wang was speechless when he heard this. The little ancestor was still in the woods and had no idea what was going on. If this powerful person left, who could save Xiao Xuetong? Themselves? Or the Zhongqing police? Could it be this immature kid in front of him? "Master Chong, please wait." He hurriedly stopped Master Zhang and turned to Zhang Xiu, saying, "Mister, this matter has nothing to do with you. Please don't meddle in it anymore. Please leave." Wu Rong said, "This is a public place. Mr. Wang has no right to chase people away. Moreover, Mr. Zhang is here to help us find Miss Xu." Master Chong snorted. "You police can catch a thief, but do you know how to slay demons and devils?" "Ridiculous." Boss Wang said, "Officer, you've seen the situation. This is not something you police can interfere with. Please cooperate. If Master Chong is delayed and Xiao Xiao is implicated, you can't bear the responsibility." Wu Rong said, "It's our responsibility to protect the citizens." Before Mr. Zhang said he was leaving, Wu Rong naturally wouldn't compromise. Boss Wang frowned. "Officer, I'm good friends with the housing bureau of the Zhongqing police station. I just need to make a phone call and you'll have to leave obediently. Don't ask for trouble." Wu Rong said, "Housing bureau? Are you talking about Fong Tsongi?" "Yes." "Unfortunately, your so-called housing bureau is no longer the director. He was just dismissed." Wu Rong said jokingly, "If you don't believe me, you can make a phone call." Boss Wong was experienced and knew that Wu Rong wouldn't joke about this kind of thing. He must be telling the truth. He suddenly felt a little embarrassed. However, if he couldn't chase them away, then Master Chong wouldn't be able to do anything. However, at this moment, the forest once again emitted a beast-like roar. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but jump in fright. They looked at the dark forest in horror. The sky above the forest was shrouded in yin energy, and a huge snake body could be vaguely seen. Whoa! This time, it was even more frightening. Oh my God! Lai Jie was so frightened that she covered her mouth. Did you see that? Did you see that? Master Chang's expression was very serious. How can there be such a big yin snake in the world? What nonsense is it talking here? Boss Wong, you should believe me now. Boss Wong was already stunned and nodded mechanically. The snake spirit was 10 to 20 meters long. Looking from afar, it was indescribably creepy and scary under the dark night sky. One look at it made one's hair stand on end. Master Chong, you must save Xiao Xiao. That little ancestor was a money tree. He couldn't let a monster eat her. Wu Rong was also stunned. There really was a monster. Zhang Xiu shook his head. Today is the 9-yin day. The yin snake is just showing its evil aura. In other words, it was a cloud of evil aura. To put it bluntly, it was no different from a cloud in the sky that looked like a huge beast. One was evil aura and the other was just a cloud. It had no destructive power at all. Nonsense. Are you trying to get us killed? Master Chong said, Boss Wong, if these people are still talking nonsense here, I won't keep them company. Don't. Boss Wong was shocked. After persuading Master Chong with great difficulty, Boss Wong glared at Zhang Xiu and Wu Rong. He said bluntly, name a price. How much is it? We won't cause trouble here. They couldn't help but laugh. Boss Wong said, 100,000. I'll give you 100,000. Take the money and leave immediately. This person was really generous. He directly threw money at them and gave them 100,000. Zhang Xiu looked at him indifferently. Still not enough? Then 500,000. Wu Rong's face revealed a strange expression. In 2008, 500,000 was enough to buy 2 houses. 1 million. I can do what I say. Zhang Xiu smiled and shook his head. Money is useless. This sovereign doesn't lack money. What I need the most is the thing in front of me. After saying this, he didn't retreat. The biggest difference between the yin snake and the snake demon is their attributes. As he said this, he had already walked forward. What does he want to do? Does he want to die? With such a large snake demon in the sky, walking over like this, wasn't he afraid of being swallowed? Zhang Xiu took out a piece of talisman paper and flung it in the air. The talisman burned in the air, and at the moment when the talisman burned, an unimaginably powerful exorcism force swept out like a gale. This is, Zhang Xiu calmly said, evil exorcism talisman. The burning talisman floated towards the snake demon at the top of the forest. Like the sun dispersing the darkness, the light from the flames shined on the snake demon. The snake demon's form disappeared without a trace. When the flames burned out, there was no trace of the snake demon in the forest. The evil exorcism talisman could only be used to expel evil. It couldn't be used against the snake demon. Master Chong was dumbstruck. Zhang Xiu's voice sounded in his ear. Answer this sovereign. This is the yin snake demon. Yes and no. Chapter 113. The demon snake just now was like a shadow that disappeared as soon as it was illuminated by the fire. But even after the talisman fire burned out, the demon snake did not appear in the sky above the forest again. Even the people present who did not understand understood that it was not a snake demon at all. How could it be a snake demon without a body? At most it looked like one. This? Master Chang's face was flushed red. He stuttered and could not answer. What do you have to say? Jiang Xiu asked Wang Zhenbang, who threw money at him. No one present could answer, and no one had the face to answer. The result was self-evident. Mr. Jiang is invincible. Wu Rong bowed deeply to Jiang Xiu. His face was full of pride and glory. He came with Mr. Jiang, and with Mr. Jiang's performance, he was also proud. Just now, he was really angry. The dignified deputy director and Mr. Jiang were actually driven away by someone. At this time, when he saw that they were speechless, it really swept away the haze and vented his anger. He was very unhappy. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Master Chong kept shaking his head. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and 3 generations of my ancestors all died in the hands of this snake demon. How do you explain this? Jiang Xiu said, What obligation do I have to explain to you? After that, he ignored him. Master Chong was left with a stunned and dazed expression. He realized that the other party did not have to explain to him at all, because he had already proved that he was right, and he was very wrong. Sir. Boss Wang was very embarrassed. He wanted to stop Jiang Xiu, but Jiang Xiu ignored him. This made him embarrassed and angry. How dare a Jianghu sorcerer put on airs in front of him? 10 million. He stretched out a finger and transmitted his voice. This was a shocking number. I'll give you 10 million. Help me save Xiao Xiao. He didn't believe that there was anyone in this world who didn't love money. Jiang Xiu said, Like I said before, I don't lack money. 50 million. Boss Wang raised his hand and extended 5 fingers. His eyes widened. 50 million was not a small amount. With this amount of money, he could spend it anywhere in the world and live a carefree life for the rest of his life. He would no longer have to risk his life to deal with demons and ghosts. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. Are you rich? Boss Wang said, I am the boss of Bai Yi Entertainment, Xiao Xuetong's boss. I don't dare to say that I am very rich, but my assets are definitely not something you can imagine. You saved her today, so you can name the price. In addition, I, Wang Zhenbang, owe you a favor. In the future, if you need help, you can come to Pinghai Province to find me. I will definitely help. Wang Zhenbang's social skills were very strong. In this day and age, he opened an entertainment company and even had the boss of a famous celebrity. Wherever he went, he was highly sought after. Everyone flattered him. After a long time, of course, he thought of himself as someone important. Therefore, his tone was very arrogant. Many people only have one chance to become rich in their lifetime. If you miss it, you will miss it forever. Think about it carefully. He looked down on these charlatans from the bottom of his heart. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in a hurry, he definitely wouldn't bother to deal with these people. What's the situation? A voice came from outside the warning line. Gu Shu, the target has been confirmed to be in the forest. Oh. The person who came was Gu Daji. He went to the hospital to be treated as a wound doctor. It was basically an external injury, so it wasn't a big deal. He went downstairs to find Jiang Xiu. After seeing Jiang Xiu's methods, although he couldn't be sure that Jiang Xiu was a demigod, he was definitely a rare talent. Naturally, he wanted to recruit him and have a good relationship with him. As soon as he arrived, he found that the warning line was pulled up. It looked like they were ready for battle. Gu Shu. Wang Zhenbao and Big Sister Li cried out in surprise. They were pleasantly surprised and excited. Jiangnan's Feng Jiangnan actually regarded Wang Zhenbang in a new light and personally came over. Gu Shu, why are you here? I didn't have to trouble you with such a small matter. Gu Daji said, Mr. Jiang is here. How dare I not come? After that, he politely called out to Jiang Xiu, Mr. Jiang. Well, now Wang Zhenbang was confused. The Jiangnan frontier, the most powerful person in Jiangnan province, why would he be so respectful to a Jianghu warlock? While Gu Shu went to talk to Jiang Xiu, Wang Zhenbang asked the secretary behind Gu Daji, Great Secretary Yi, who is this Mr. Jiang? Why is Gu Shu so polite to him? The secretary said, Boss Wang came to Zhongqing to earn money. Haven't you heard of Mr. Zhang's name? Wang Zhenbong shook his head. The secretary said, in Zhongqing, Mr. Zhang has the final say. Even in Zhongnan province, half of it is under his feet. This warlock was actually such a big shot. Wang Zhenbong sucked in a breath of cold air and was stunned. Do you think my boss should be polite to him? The secretary saw Wang Zhenbong's strange expression and felt strange. He couldn't help but say, Boss Wang, did you offend Mr. Zhang? In Zhongqing, you can offend anyone but Mr. Zhang. Because no one who offends him can live. Wang Zhenbong's face turned pale. What's the situation? Gu Dezhi asked. Zhang Xiu's gaze was fixed on the forest. He said casually, she's in there, and so is the one who caught her. I need to go in. Dismiss everyone around. Especially that fly. Gu Dezhi said to Wu Rong, what are you waiting for? Didn't you hear Mr. Zhang? Clear everyone out of the cordon. Everyone, please. Don't wait for the police to force you out. Wang Zhenbong, Lai Jie, and Master Chong were embarrassed. They wanted to chase people out, but now they were the ones being chased out. Zhang Xiu didn't care about such a small matter. If he did, these people would be dead. He dismissed them because he was worried that they would be in trouble if something happened. As he spoke, Zhang Xiu had already walked into the forest. A figure stood in the forest. He had messy white hair, wore a long robe, and held a walking stick in his hand. It was impossible to tell his age. Who are you? How dare you meddle in my business? Zhang Xiu said, you hid well, and your appearance is not bad. Unfortunately, a spiritual body is still a spiritual body. That person's expression changed. Who are you? I'm here to capture you. You have a death wish. He pointed his walking stick at Zhang Xiu, and the Yin snake under his feet shot toward Zhang Xiu like an arrow. His eyes emitted black fog, and he muttered something. Umph. Zhang Xiu waved his hand, and an invisible force blew towards the shadow snake. Suddenly, a fierce wind blew, causing the entire forest to sway. The shadow snake was only a spiritual body, so it was unable to withstand this degree of wind. It immediately turned into black gas, and drifted away with the wind without a trace. The trees that had been blown over by the wind straightened up. You? That person's expression changed again, and his eyes flickered. He asked, are you a divine body? Are you a god? Zhang Xiu said, you have a good eye. What a surprise to meet a divine body here. Zhang Xiu said, I'm also surprised to meet a god here, and an evil one at that. Same here. The demonic god said, how long have you lived? Zhang Xiu said, less than 20 years. The demonic god said, how is that possible? You can't have such power with less than 20 years of cultivation. I've lived for 1,000 years, and I've raised the Yin snake for 100 years. It doesn't make sense. Wait, what's your priesthood? Zhang Xiu said, I don't have a priesthood. Zhang Xiu was curious about this. He had 2 priesthood lights, but he didn't know what they were used for. He asked, what's the use of a priesthood? The demonic god laughed. He was sure that Zhang Xiu was really a hothead, and he wasn't pretending. Why don't you ask the mortals what they're used for? Of course it's for power, and longevity. The demonic god said, receive the good fortune of heaven and earth, and perform meritorious deeds, and the light of a priesthood descends from the heavens. Prove your position as a god, surpass the mortals, and enter the extraordinary. You can escape the boundaries of life and death, and travel the universe. Zhang Xiu asked him, what's your priesthood? The demonic god said, 9th level Northern Grand Divine Taoism. As he spoke, his body emitted a faint glow. It should be the light of a priesthood. It was completely different from the 2 priesthood lights that Zhang Xiu had encountered before. The light of his priesthood was as evil as his person. Zhang Xiu said, interesting. Chapter 114. Just as Zhang Xiu had predicted, the spirit qi on earth had withered. It was almost impossible to use spirit qi to cultivate one's physical body to the divine Tao. Therefore, one had to rely on merit to grow. In the legends, the North deity cultivated the ghost god Tao, which was why the evil god cultivated the evil god Tao. In other words, not only did the evil god want to kill Xiao Xuetong, but he also wanted to take her soul. One soul was one evil. The more souls he took, the stronger his power would be, and the stronger his North deity godhood light would be. In addition, Xiao Xuetong had many fans, so she could gain a lot of power from the divine Tao. I'm Ming Luan. The heavenly Tao is blocked, and it's difficult for my divine body to advance. I had no choice but to abandon my physical body and cultivate the Tao of Yin God. Ming Luan sighed. It's laughable that I was ignorant. I even doubted whether there were Yang gods in this world. For 1,000 years, I've never heard of it. Today, I finally have the chance to see it. Alas. His tone was full of regret. The Yin god was an evil god that was worshipped without being conferred the title. The ghost god was not orthodox. It was like a dream or a shadow. It was like a ghost. Simply put, it was a spiritual body. To put it plainly, it was a breath. This was undoubtedly a low-grade one. Although Zhang Xiu had not truly become a god, he was walking the Yang god Tao. Once he became a god, he would break away from his physical body and create a new Yang god body. In the immortal martial continent, there was a debate about whether the Yin god or the Yang god was stronger. This debate came to an end when an incident happened. It was said that in the early days of the immortal martial continent, there was a pair of brothers. One cultivated the Yin god, and the other cultivated the Yang god. One day, both of them cultivated to become gods. It was the day when the jasper flowers bloomed in the Huangqian Empire. Commoners were not allowed to see them. The two brothers thought that they had cultivated to become gods, so they said, "Let's go to the palace to see the jasper flowers." Thus, the two of them sat cross-legged and left. They looked at the jasper flowers and drank tea. After their primordial spirits returned, they looked at each other and smiled. They said in unison, "Bring the flowers." When the Yin god touched his sleeve, there were no flowers. When the Yang god touched his sleeve, there were flowers. After that, the immortal martial continent continued to develop, and the wheels of history proved that the Yin deity Tao was a broken path. There were many flaws in it, and there was also a limit to how far it could go. Currently, the immortal martial continent's deity cultivators were basically all Yang deities. They were all forced to cultivate the Yin deity Tao. In the immortal martial continent's heavenly court of fortune, Yin gods were only allowed to take up a lowly position. It could be said that once a person cultivated a Yin spirit, he or she would be destroyed. There was no future to speak of. Back then, Ming Luan had painstakingly cultivated in a strange book. The book clearly stated that there were Yin spirit and Yang spirit, so he naturally chose Yang spirit. However, it was very tiring. After several hardships, it was difficult for him to move forward. When he saw that his companions around him had also failed to achieve the way of Yang spirit, he doubted whether there was really a Yang spirit in the book. In the end, he chose Yin spirit. At this moment, seeing that Zhang Xiu could easily destroy the Yin snake that he had raised for 100 years, he felt greatly disappointed. However, he laughed again and said, "In the end, there is an end to the road of the Yang spirit. As you walk, the road will be gone. Why do you have to choose a dead end? Why don't you cultivate Yin spirit with me?" Zhang Xiu sneered and said, "Ming Luan, Yang spirit is a dead end for you, but for me, it is a broad road. Achieving Yang spirit is only a matter of time for me. In less than a year or two, I can achieve Yang spirit. As for Yin spirit, to put it bluntly, it is a crippled body of a god. Although it is called a god, it is actually no different from a ghost." On earth, the spiritual qi had withered, so the road of spiritual cultivation would indeed be hindered by the physical body. In the early stages, one could rely on other methods, such as martial arts or heavenly treasures to make some progress, but these were not enough to support one to the end. When one reached a certain level, it would inevitably be difficult to make any progress. No matter how much one cultivated martial arts or absorbed heavenly treasures, it would be useless. No, you are not even as good as a ghost. You can only be called a monster. In Zhang Xiu's eyes, the person in front of him was not in the shape of a human. He had a green face, fangs, a single eye, and a body of a dragon. His whole body exuded a ferocious and evil aura. This should be his original appearance. Like the ancestor of the Wang family, he had also mutated. On the road of evolving into a god, he had become what he was now. The more Zhang Xiu said, the uglier Ming Luan's face became. No one dares to slander me. Considering that you are young and ignorant, if you kneel down and sacrifice your soul to me, I can spare your life. In his eyes, Zhang Xiu was just a demigod who was not up to standard. In front of a god, a demigod was a joke. Zhang Xiu sneered and shook his head. Unfortunately, I have taken a fancy to your 1,000-year cultivation. Even if you kneel down and surrender, I will absorb your power. Arrogant boy. Zhuo Wentian of the Heavenly Dao Palace, Li Puti of Bodhi Biogenetics, and Xian Julin of the Medicine King Valley dare not talk to me like this. You are courting death. Green light flashed in Ming Luan's eyes. His white hair fluttered in the wind. His voice was like the howling of a ghost. It sounded like the roar of a wild beast. The faces of the onlookers outside the forest turned pale again. Along with his roar, his aura burst out in an instant. A chilly wind swept through the entire forest. Even the moonlight was blocked. The forest seemed to have become a ghost town. Howling sounds filled the surroundings. I will show you what the power of a god is. North the arch divine light. In an instant, countless black fog rushed over like a tide. It had a strange power. It was as if even one's consciousness was being eroded. One's brain and body felt as if one's entire being was being eroded. This is... Zhang Xiu was greatly shocked. The light of godhood was actually somewhat similar to their so-called domain of God. Die. Boom. A huge black claw suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Xiu's chest and was about to pierce into Zhang Xiu's chest. The claw was covered with black scales. The 5 fingers were very long. They were twice as long as a normal person's. Together with the 10-centimeter-long nails, it was very frightening. The sharp claws were so fast and powerful that they could probably even pierce through the steel plates of an armored vehicle. Humph! Zhang Xiu snorted disdainfully. The one in front of him was not a real god. It just thought that it was a god. It just had the divine light. 5,000 evils as a prison, 6,000 evils as a prison, and 10,000 evils as a prison. Zhang Xiu was still far from it. In fact, the real power was the power of the divine Tao faith that Xiao Xuetong gave him. This superstar had too many die-hard fans. In addition, she had just held a concert today. It was the most intense time. TSK. Zhang Xiu pointed his finger at the claw. A golden light flashed between his fingers. Before the two forces collided, there was a strangling sound. The magnetic fields collided. Unless one had really reached the divine realm, the Yin god would never have the slightest advantage in front of the Yang god. Its weakness was comprehensive. Puff. At that moment, it was as if a tire had been punctured by Zhang Xiu's sword finger. Zhang Xiu's divine Dao Qi weapon was better. It left a hole in the palm of the claw and pierced through it. Mingluan's expression changed greatly. He couldn't help but step back. He looked at his claw in disbelief. This claw had condensed his most powerful supernatural power and was the most powerful part of his Yin god body. How is this possible? However, the underworld will quickly regained his composure. You do have some cultivation. No wonder you dared to find trouble with me. However... Thick black smoke rose from his hand. When it dissipated, the hole in his palm had already healed. You are only a demigod. If you don't become a god, you will never know how terrible a god is. In this world, there is no power that can kill me. As long as I have the North Emperor's divine light, I can live forever. Outside the forest, outside the police line. What's going on inside? Mr. Jiang has been in there for a long time. Could something have happened to him? Wu Rong said worriedly. There was a little sound just now, but now there is no sound at all. Master Chong said, I understand. The Yin snake is raised and driven by someone. If I'm not wrong, that person is inside. Even 3 generations of my ancestors couldn't deal with him. Besides, he is a demon from 100 years ago. Mr. Jiang can't deal with him. I'm afraid he has turned into a skeleton by now. Look. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. In the sky above the forest, there was another huge shadow of a snake. It seems that I was right. Mr. Jiang has been defeated. Master Chong shook his head secretly and said with a sigh, I advised him not to be arrogant, but he didn't listen. Now he has lost his life. Gu Shu frowned slightly. If Jiang Luoxia couldn't even deal with a demon, then the Gu family didn't need to rope him in. Suddenly, there was a boom. A figure flew out of the forest and knocked down dozens of trees. He fell to the ground and couldn't stop himself. He slid out dozens of meters. What's going on? Zhang Xiu walked out of the forest slowly and shook his head. Do you think you are strong? Chapter 115. The crowd outside the forest could not help but exclaim. They instinctively felt suffocated. This was a duel that they could not hope for. It was like a bomber bombing above their heads, making them feel terrified. They thought that Zhang Xiu would be at an absolute disadvantage. However, they did not expect Zhang Xiu to leisurely stroll out of the forest. He was relaxed and domineering. If he was unscathed, then the one who flew out just now was the murderer. How is this possible? Wizard Zhang Xiaoling's eyes widened. This evil creature was a monster that had lived for hundreds of years. The power it possessed was so strong that even after hundreds of years of research, the ancestors of the Zhang family were not confident that they could defeat it. Such a big monster was actually beaten up by him. How strong was this kid who was still wet behind the ears? Mr. Jiang, this is Mr. Jiang's strength? Gu Shu and Wu Rong were stunned. The body that was sent flying and fell to the ground emitted black smoke that was as thick as ink. His whole person was indescribably evil. A head of white hair that reached his waist spread out, making him look even more demonic. Roar! He let out a beast-like roar and his whole body trembled. He slowly got up from the ground, as if he was in great pain, but more than that, he was angry. You've angered me. Boom! His body rushed out like a cheetah. At the same time, the body that rushed out of the black smoke grew larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. The original height of a normal person was now 2 or 3 meters. His whole body was filled with black smoke and he kept blasting out. His white hair flew like flames. Oh my God! When elder sister Li saw such a monster, she cried out in fright. In the next moment, the netherworld wheel had rushed in front of Zhang Xiu. Let's see the evolved form of the Yin god. Antennae grew out of his forehead and his whole body was covered in scales. He was faintly discernible in the black smoke, as if an ancient demon god had arrived and wanted to intimidate this world. Monster! Monster! Even Boss Wong screamed in fear. Die! Zhang Xiu had already peaked into his original form. He had evolved much more thoroughly than the ancestor of the Wong family. Judging from his form, he should be infinitely close to a god. Ha! Zhang Xiu waved his hand, and a formless sword blade slashed out in the air. A few months ago, he wouldn't even be able to unleash such a sword blade as his divine body was too weak. But now, the 27 divine patterns were enough for him to unleash the Skyline sword blade. At first, the sword blade was incomparably slow, but in the next moment, it suddenly flashed and arrived in front of the underworld wheel. Boom! A loud crash resounded in the void as the two forces collided violently. It was as if 2 waves had collided head-on. The momentum was astonishing. In everyone's vision, the black gas that filled the sky was forcibly cut into two halves, as if the entire world had been dislocated. "How can you have such powerful divine power?" Netherwheel exclaimed. What was cut in half was not only the black gas, but also his body. The power of the sun god is not something you can imagine. At the same level, the difference between the Een god and the sun god was like the difference between a breath and a punch. Roar! Accompanied by his painful cries, the black gas in his body constantly drifted out. After the billowing smoke, his damaged body was once again healed. Ha ha ha! I said before that I can't be killed. The Een god naturally had its own Een god's power. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people felt a chill in their hearts. Even his body was cut in half, but it could still heal. Then, how could he be killed? My ancestor once said that this monster is an evil spirit. Ordinary power can't kill it at all. It has an immortal body. Zhang Shaoling had read about it in the notes left behind by his ancestor. What should we do? Boss Wong asked in horror. Zhang Shaoling shook his head. There's no solution. 3 generations of my ancestors have studied it for more than 100 years, but they still couldn't find a solution. The only solution is only 10%. No matter how strong he is, he has no chance of winning against an evil spirit that can't be killed. Zhang Shaoling said, "Everyone, listen to me. Retreat immediately. Retreat within a radius of 1 mile. All the patients in the hospital must be evacuated. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable." Boy, the game is over. Netherwheel's eyes emitted a terrible green light. His whole body became gloomy as he pounced on Zhang Xiu. It's time to end it. Zhang Xiu stomped heavily on the ground. With a bang, his whole body shot out as if there was a spring under his feet. He soared into the void and stretched out his arms. 10 meters. 5 meters. The two of them were about to collide. 2 meters. Boom. Zhang Xiu suddenly punched out. The chi on his fist was like a cannonball that was shot out. The powerful force presented a huge visual impact. The power surged wildly, and the surrounding air seemed to be distorted. The black gas that filled the sky was pressed into a depression. The powerful fist pushed out and Netherwheel exploded. It was as if he had been hit by a cannonball. His chest, abdomen, body, and 4 limbs all exploded. His whole body turned into dust and was completely blown away by the wind from the fist. He was blown to pieces with 1 punch. The crowd originally wanted to run away, but when they saw this scene, they were all shocked and stood on the spot. Zhang Shaoling was even more stunned. He could even blast an evil spirit to death? He won. The monster was killed. But in the next moment, the black gas that was blown away by the fist suddenly gathered together like a hurricane. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it formed the shadow of Netherwheel. Moreover, it was becoming more and more solid. Sure enough, this evil spirit can't be killed. It's starting to condense and take shape again. The crowd that didn't have time to be happy suddenly quieted down. Kid, it's too early for you to be happy. This god said that this god can't be killed. Zhang Xiu said with a smile, "You're too naive. This god's punch isn't to kill you, but to shatter you. Because your appearance is too ugly, it makes this god lose his appetite." What? Zhang Xiu smiled. He suddenly opened his mouth and sucked hard. Before the Netherwheel in front of him could condense and take shape, it was sucked over by a strong suction force. It was compressed into fine soul threads and was about to enter Zhang Xiu's mouth. Only then did the Netherwheel realize that Zhang Xiu's real intention was to devour it. It was too late to resist, and it was powerless to resist. After the first scream, it stopped abruptly. The whole person was swallowed by Zhang Xiu. As Zhang Xiu closed his mouth, the strong light also entered his mouth. Everything was settled. Was this a myth? In the myths, there were gods who could devour evil spirits. The scene in front of them was exactly the same as what was described in the myths. The evil spirit was devoured by Mr. Zhang? Zhang Xiu wiped his mouth unscrupulously, as if he had tasted something. In fact, he didn't feel anything at all. The god-devouring technique could even devour a real god, let alone a fake one. The spiritual power of the nether wheel was quickly absorbed by Zhang Xiu. A 1,000-year-old spirit body was indeed stronger than the previous two. It was as if he had eaten a 1,000-year-old ginseng. His body was much stronger, and the Protoss blood in his body surged again. Boom, it directly broke through another membrane and awakened another one. The number of divine patterns on his arm reached 30. Immediately after, his whole body shook and another one was awakened. 31 divine patterns appeared. He had awakened 2 in a row. Tonight, his efforts weren't in vain. The trend of the first pattern of the divine pattern was becoming more and more obvious. It was a bit like an ancient character. According to Zhang Xiu's experience, this might be a spell. Spell sounds were the most powerful spells. In fact, the shorter the spell, the more powerful it was. It wasn't a curse, but a deterrent. Back then, the Shadow Emperor had looked back and said a word, and the millions of Void Divine Dragon army fell from the sky. No one survived. And his first divine inscription diagram was a total of 31 divine inscriptions. Yet Zhang Xiu had already reached that level. He could already imagine the scene of Zhang Xiu chanting out that incantation when the first divine inscription diagram appeared. Zhang Shaoling was completely stunned. He looked at Zhang Xiu as if he was looking at a monster. The evil spirit that had killed 3 generations of his ancestors was swallowed by him just like that. It was so simple. From the beginning to the end of the battle, he was completely in a state of crushing his opponent. It was done easily. It was ridiculous that he had even tried to evacuate the crowd. He felt like a clown, jumping up and down. Mr. Zhang won? Gu Shu was completely dumbfounded. His mind was blank. This level was simply like watching a myth. Chapter 116. Only then did everyone realize that the evil spirit had been killed by Zhang Xiu. Although the way he killed it was a little scary, there were many rumors of people swallowing monsters alive. Such people were usually gifted and had extraordinary life destinies. In ancient times, they were all conferred the title of Marquis, and some even had the honor of having an emperor artifact. This Mr. Zhang was indeed not an ordinary person. He won, he really won. That evil spirit was killed by Mr. Zhang. That's great. The crisis was finally over. Gu Shu and the others went to welcome him. Gu Shu was very excited. He said, "Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for helping the people of Rivertown to get rid of this scourge." Yeah. Zhang Xiu's face was as calm as water. It seemed that he didn't feel much about getting rid of such a powerful evil spirit. It was as if he had done something very normal. "How is Miss Xu?" Zhang Xiu said. "In the forest." After that, he walked into the forest. Since the evil spirit controlling her had been killed, there wouldn't be much of a problem. The group followed Zhang Xiu into the forest and saw Xiao Xuetong lying next to a pile of extinguished matches. The matches were still smoking, and it seemed that they had just been extinguished. The underworld wheel used the power of Hua Tong to control Xiao Xuetong. Since he was dead, the fire was naturally extinguished. "Xiao Xiao! Xiao Xiao!" Wang Zhenbang and Lai Jie shouted a few times, but Xiao Xuetong didn't wake up. If it weren't for the rising and falling of her chest, they would have thought that she was dead. Zhang Shaoling said softly, "She must have lost her soul. This is troublesome." Zhang Xiu came to Xiao Xuetong's side and squatted down. He pointed at her glabella and softly chanted a spell. A white light seemed to enter her glabella. Xiao Xuetong's cute nose emitted a heavy breathing sound. Then, her eyelashes trembled slightly, and she opened her eyes slightly. "He's awake." "Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao," Xiao Xuetong said in a daze. Where am I?" It's okay. When Zhang Xiu and Gu Shu saw that the matter was resolved, they didn't stay any longer. They didn't want to wait for these people to repay them. In fact, at their level, it was impossible for these people to repay them. Just as he exited the forest, a figure hurriedly chased after him. "Sir, please wait." The one chasing after him was Zhang Shaoling. "What is it?" With a thud, Zhang Shaoling knelt down on both knees and kowtowed to the ground. "Mister, please accept me as your disciple. I'm willing to follow you for the rest of my life and do whatever you want." Zhang Xiu's face was as calm as water. "You're not qualified." After that, he walked away unhurriedly, leaving Zhang Shaoling kneeling on the ground with a dull look in his eyes. He didn't get up for a long time. "Mr. Zhang, I'll walk you out." Gu Shu didn't have any doubts at this time. He had to recruit an extraordinary person like Zhang Xiu into the Gu family. Even if his elder brother didn't appreciate him, he had to build a good relationship with Zhang Xiu no matter what. This man had amazing abilities. Okay. Zhang Xiu didn't refuse. He didn't have a car anyway. On the way, Gu Shu asked Zhang Xiu about the situation of his father in detail. He was ready to overturn the case for Zhang Xiu's father no matter how much pressure he had to face. He also had to restore his official position. This matter was very difficult. Today's society wasn't a society where one person's word was law. The whole of Jiangnan wasn't under his control. In fact, he also felt a lot of pressure in Jiangnan. The various forces were very complicated. Moreover, Jiang Yi did make a mistake in the past. What he did was very risky. But now, he felt that it was all worth it. When he returned home, all the lights in the house were turned on. The air conditioner was also turned on. He saw Cheng Lingsu sleeping on the sofa. When she heard movement, she slightly opened her eyes. When she saw Zhang Xiu, she sat up and said vaguely, "You're back." Zhang Xiu frowned and said, "Why didn't you go back to the house to sleep?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I waited for you to come back." "Umph." Zhang Xiu coldly snorted and mercilessly exposed Cheng Lingsu's lie. "The lights in the house are so bright. Even the pantry over there, the kitchen over there, and even the staircase lights in the corridor are all turned on. You're waiting for me. I think you're afraid." She was the only one in such a big villa. How could a 17-year-old girl not be afraid? Cheng Lingsu didn't say anything. It was obvious that Zhang Xiu was right. "You're not allowed to turn on so many lights in the future." "Okay." Zhang Xiu didn't bother with her anymore and directly went to his room. Cheng Lingsu turned off the lights and then went to the room next to Zhang Xiu's. Zhang Xiu didn't sleep. Instead, he meditated and refined the energy that he absorbed. There was another divine light in his body. However, this divine light was black. According to the underworld wheel, it should be called the North Emperor's divine light. Then, the other two divine lights also had names. Furthermore, they would also have corresponding effects. He thought of the book that Cheng Lingsu bought for him and picked up the Protoss Evolution book to read. He hoped that he would be able to find records related to the divine light from these books. This book mentioned an analogy. In America, there was a type of dog called the Pit Bull Terrier. It was bred from American Staffordshire Terriers and Bulldogs. They continuously improved their genes and bred a type of ferocious dog with powerful killing power. The author said that the Protoss in the past also did something similar. They used genetics to breed Protoss with more fighting power. However, for some reason, the Protoss eventually died. This is new. Back in the immortal Martial Continent, there had never been such considerations. The god race was extremely against interracial marriages. It was strictly forbidden within the immortal Martial Continent. Because of this, it was unknown how many couples had been broken up. This was also the reason why the immortal Martial Continent had many popular love stories. The god race had always believed that the purer and older the bloodline, the better. If there was a Protoss who combined the strengths of many families, it was simply unimaginable how powerful he would be. Death is inevitable. How could the genes of the Protoss be estimated by the genetics of mortals? This involved the principles of heaven and earth and was infinitely profound. Currently, humans had not even explored a billionth of the mysteries of the world. They will be punished by the heavens. Only a few people could escape the restraints of the heavenly Tao. Unless an immortal emperor had this thought, who else could resist the heavenly punishment of the Protoss? Cheng Lingsu was actually not asleep. She was listening to the movements next door. She heard Zhang Xiu get up and the sound of Zhang Xiu flipping the pages of a book. Many thoughts flashed through her mind, but in the end, they all turned into sadness. The next morning, Cheng Lingsu went out to buy breakfast for Zhang Xiu before he even woke up. Cheng Lingsu was different from usual. Zhang City's specialty breakfast, soy milk and fried dough sticks. Zhang Xiu was dismissive. He held the phone in his hand and said, "My mom called and told us to wait for her. They might have heard about what happened to your family." The Chung clan's bankruptcy was such a big matter. Sooner or later, they would hear about it. Cheng Lingsu lowered her head and drank her soy milk. "You didn't say anything to my parents, right?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I didn't contact them." "What about your parents?" Cheng Lingsu pondered for a moment. She didn't call home yesterday, and they didn't call her either. She shook her head and said, "I'm not sure. I don't think they'll call." When the Chung clan was rich, her father was fine, but her mother often mocked and ridiculed. Now that the Chung clan was bankrupt, they were also in trouble. How could they have the face to stick close to them? Zhang Xiu said, "My parents don't know about me." Cheng Lingsu said, "I won't tell them." After breakfast, Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu went out of the door to Yun Lake. Lin Yueling was at the fruit stall early in the morning. She was now the lady boss, but after waking up so early for so many years, she couldn't be idle. Seeing the youthful Cheng Lingsu beside Zhang Xiu, Lin Yueling's eyes lit up. She went up to her and warmly held her hands. "You're Su Su, right? A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. The more she grows, the more beautiful she becomes." The Cheng family's beautiful sister's appearances were indeed amazing. Cheng Lingsu was dressed in white. Standing on the street, the dirty street became fashionable and dreamy. She smiled sweetly. "Auntie Lin. Good girl. Have you eaten breakfast?" Lin Yueling was very happy, but Zhang Xiu secretly frowned. In this life, the incident that destroyed his family didn't happen, so Lin Yueling's impression of Cheng Lingsu was quite good. This wasn't a good sign. "I've eaten." Lin Yueling quickly took out a red packet from her pocket and said, "I haven't seen you in so long. Auntie will give you a red packet." "Damn, it's quite thick. Look at the thickness, it's at least 1,000 yuan. "Thank you." Cheng Lingsu didn't hesitate to accept it and held it tightly in her hands. Lin Yueling should know that her family was bankrupt and was worried that she didn't have money. Zhang Xiu shook his head. His mother was just too kind. She didn't know how evil this woman in front of him was. In his previous life, she ruined his family. Chapter 117. Lin Yueling called Cheng Lingsu into the fruit stall to talk. If it was in the past, Cheng Lingsu would never step foot into a place like this, but now she didn't even frown, and even had a smile on her face. The sun was very hot, and after the sun came out, Cheng Lingsu's forehead and nose were covered in fine sweat. Lin Yueling didn't know what to say to her, and Zhang Xiu wasn't interested in knowing anyway. Cheng Lingsu's face darkened, and she guessed that they were talking about her family's bankruptcy. Her family's bankruptcy was indeed a big blow to her. The more money a person had, the more superior they felt, but now the psychological gap was even bigger. Just look at Sun Xiaohong, and it was obvious that she couldn't live anymore. On the other hand, Cheng Lingran was calm and indifferent, but there were very few women like her who didn't care about money. She was a bit aloof and spiritual. As for Cheng Lingsu, she was between her mother and sister. Lin Yueling went to pick the biggest apple, planning to wash it and give it to Cheng Lingsu to eat. Zhang Xiu looked at her and frowned, saying coldly, "Are you waiting for my mom to tell you off?" Cheng Lingsu finally came out of the sad mood of bankruptcy, and hurriedly said, "Auntie, I'll do it myself." She quickly snatched the apple from Lin Yueling's hands and ran outside to wash it. When she passed by Zhang Xiu, she even asked, "Do you want it?" Zhang Xiu coldly snorted. "Stinking brat, you've grown a temper, treating Su Su like this." Lin Yueling couldn't help but widen her eyes. Her silly son was actually so impressive in front of Su Su, this beautiful fiancé. This really surprised her. "Su Su, next time you don't need to pay attention to him. If he dares to bully you in the future, come find Auntie, Auntie will support you." Cheng Lingsu faintly smiled. In Lin Yueling's memory, Cheng Lingsu's personality wasn't like this. Compared to her sister, she was colder and more individualistic. She sighed in her heart. She was experienced, and when her family suffered a great change, her personality also underwent a great change. As an experienced person, she sympathized with Cheng Lingsu. "It's okay." Lin Yueling comforted her. She didn't want to mention it, but she couldn't bear to see Cheng Lingsu like this, so she quietly said, "Auntie will tell you a secret. Actually, my family is very rich. Do you see this street? They all belong to our family, and the monthly rent is over 1,000,000 yuan. You don't have to worry about living a hard life after you marry into our family." Cheng Lingsu was still smiling faintly, but there was a hint of awkwardness under her smile. Not to mention whether she was willing to marry him or not. Would Zhang Xiu marry her? "What, you don't believe me?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I do. Of course I believe what Auntie said. Your son is Mr. Jiang, and even the entire Wang family has been swallowed by him. Just the super large commercial and residential project in Wanji Guang City alone is worth more than 2 billion yuan. Buying a street in the suburbs is nothing. Then why are you still unhappy?" Cheng Lingsu smiled and said, "No. Are you worried about your parents? The Cheng family's bankruptcy should have hit them the hardest." When Lin Yueling mentioned these two people, the kindness on her face disappeared and was replaced by coldness. Lin Yueling treated Cheng Lingsu as a child. In fact, Cheng Lingsu was too young at that time, so she couldn't be blamed. However, Lin Yueling hated Cheng Hanlin and his wife to the bone. It was good enough that she didn't hit them when they were down, let alone offer money to help the couple. No. However, after the incident, Jiang Yi was stunned. He was in a trance for the whole day. Although he was full of hatred, the Cheng clan could be said to have traded his career for it. To some extent, the better the Cheng clan developed, the more worthwhile his sacrifice would be. When Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu got married, what he did at that time would be a little more meaningful. But now that the Cheng clan was ruined, everything he did at that time was in vain. Don't think too much. Everything will pass. At that time, he had suffered much more than Cheng Lingsu. He didn't even have food to eat and suffered all the hypocrisy of the world. "Mrs. Yueling, give me some pears." Cheng Lingsu walked over and asked, "Which kind do you want?" That person was an acquaintance. Since Zhang Xiu bought this street, all the tenants on the street would come here to buy fruit, unless the end of the street was too far away. This kind. Cheng Lingsu picked up the bag and operated it like a professional. She was dressed very casually today and was not as particular as before. However, it was a little too provocative. A pair of snow-white slender legs were exposed generously. The shape of her legs was perfect and flawless. Under the sunlight, they shone like crystal jade. Zhang Xiu couldn't help but look at her beautiful legs. He found that not only were Cheng Lingsu's legs beautiful, but her beautiful feet were also flawless. Wearing sandals, they were snow-white and pink. Her toes were like blooming petals. What a good girl. She enjoyed the riches of the world and could also bear the hardships of the world. Lin Yueling was amazed by this girl's adaptability and transformation. "Mom, you can't just look at the surface of things." Lin Yueling couldn't help but smile. "You're lecturing your mom. You've grown up. Is it so great to be the top scorer in the exam? By the way, have you considered filling in the application form in the next 2 days?" Jiang Yi and his wife had discussed this matter for a long time. They were very against Zhang Xiu going to the capital. After all, they had experienced those things. They were also worried that Zhang Xiu would have something to do with the other side. However, their son was the top scorer in the college entrance examination. He could go to the capital university and the Hua Nation University. There was no reason for him not to choose these two universities. They also thought of some excuses to let Jiang Xiu study in Shanghai University. After all, Shanghai University was also a first-class university and was adjacent to Jiangnan. Of course, Jiangnan University wasn't bad either. However, as they waited and waited, Jiang Xiu didn't mention the application. He was more patient than them. In the end, she still had to say it. If it's not the capital university, then it's the Hua Nation University. Jiang Xiu understood his parents' concerns. Actually, Shanghai University and Jiangnan University are not bad. It's closer to home. It's convenient for us to visit you. As expected, the meat was coming. Cheng Lingsu took the money and went back into the shop. She didn't dare to stand in front of the fan to block the wind. She tilted her head and listened. She seemed to have heard her aunt objecting to Jiang Xiu going to the capital university. "Mom, I've never heard of it. Who doesn't go to the capital university and the Hua Nation University?" Lin Yueling was also very conflicted. On one hand, she didn't want Jiang Xiu to have anything to do with them in the capital. On the other hand, the two universities in the capital were indeed better. She didn't want to delay her son's future. At this moment, the phone in Cheng Lingsu's bag rang. She took out her phone and saw that it was her mother. "Hello, Mom." Sun Xiaohong was very humble. "Come to the street corner. We can't borrow money here. Your dad wants to go back to his hometown and borrow some money from his relatives. He wants to start a small business. You should come along." Chen Hanlin's hometown was in Ninghai City, north of Jiangnan. "Mom, why don't I not go?" Sun Xiaohong said angrily. "Would you rather stand in front of a fruit stall and sell fruits?" It turned out that Sun Xiaohong had already seen it from afar. "Oh, okay then." After hanging up the phone, Cheng Lingsu said to Lin Yueling, "Auntie, my parents are going back to Ninghai City. They want me to accompany them. Then, I'll leave first." Lin Yueling nodded and turned to Jiang Xiu. "Ninghai is quite far away. Minor repairs. You can accompany Su Su and take care of her." "I'll accompany her." Jiang Xiu felt depressed in his heart. Instead of wasting this time, he might as well spend it on cultivation. However, Lin Yueling's eyes glared at him fiercely, leaving no room for doubt. He had no choice but to say, "Okay." Seeing Jiang Xiu coming over with her daughter, Sun Xiaohong's face was expressionless. In the past, she despised Jiang Xiu. Now, she detested and even hated him. She felt that Jiang Xiu was a jinx who brought bad luck to the Cheng family. Cheng Hanlin's attitude was slightly better. "Minor repairs too. Okay." In fact, he was not very willing to let Jiang Xiu go with him. His family was in dire straits. It was really embarrassing to bring along a poor son-in-law. However, since Jiang Xiu was willing to accompany them, it was also a kind gesture. He could not refuse. When sending Cheng Ling ran off, Jiang Xiu was generous in all aspects. However, he treated Cheng Hanlin and his wife coldly. He did not express his attitude from beginning to end. He allowed the other two to buy 4 long-distance bus tickets to Ninghai City. Moreover, the tickets were hard seats. It would take 3 to 4 hours by car. "Will they lend us money?" Sun Xiaohong asked worriedly. "Yes." Cheng Hanlin's tone was very firm. He had a few cousins. After he became rich, he sponsored them and also let them start a real estate company. It was a small business, but its assets were more than 10 million yuan. He felt that it was not a big problem to borrow some money from them. Chapter 118. Jiang Xiu was no stranger to the bus that set off from Zhongqing to Ninghai City. In his previous life, in order to win back Cheng Lingsu, he had once anxiously gone to Ninghai to look for her with his last glimmer of hope. Jiang Xiu still remembered that it was the end of the year. The weather was very cold, and it was snowing heavily. He had said the words that came from the bottom of his heart to Chang Ling-su. He had thought about these words 100 or 1,000 times on the way here, but in the end, Chang Ling-su had still turned around and left him heartlessly. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu felt a strange emotion in his heart. His gaze towards Chang Ling-su became colder. The current Chang Ling-su was still different from before. Although her facial features were exquisite, she was still immature at the age of 17. She didn't know what Jiang Xiu was thinking. That cold gaze might have touched a sore spot in his heart. She thought that it was caused by Jiang Xiu being together with his parents. Little did she know that it was something she had done in her previous life. She pursed her red lips and said, "Are you thirsty? Here's some water." Jiang Xiu reached out to take it. Just as he was about to twist it open, he realized that it had already loosened. He said, "Are your parents going back to borrow money this time?" Chang Ling-su said, "I think so." Jiang Xiu said, "Do you think they'll be able to borrow money?" Chang Ling-su realized that Jiang Xiu's gaze was malicious. Her heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but say, You can't be thinking of—" "Jiang Xiu, let them go. They're already very miserable. My father has aged so quickly, and my mother's hair has turned white. Even if they had offended you in the past, they've already paid back what they owed. If you have to torture someone to vent your anger, then torture me." Jiang Xiu said, "You misunderstood. What I mean is, will anyone be willing to lend them money?" Chang Ling-su was stunned. The world was cold. Her father had been in the business world for so many years and had many friends. However, when the Chang clan was in trouble, no one in Zhongqing was willing to lend him money. She wasn't sure if anyone would be willing to lend them money when they returned to their hometown, but she still said, "Definitely. My father is talented in business. If not, everyone has confidence in him." Jiang Xiu said, "I hope so." After Chang Ling-su and company arrived in Ninghai City, they went straight to his cousin's company. "Come, let's find Wu Jun first." Wu Jun used to have the best relationship with him. After he became successful, Wu Jun had also given him the most support. Over the years, Wu Jun had also developed the best. His assets were around 20 to 30 million yuan, or around 50 million yuan. Even in Ninghai City, which was relatively economically backward, his assets were still considered good in the city. This was mainly because of Chang Hanlin. Junjie Construction Companies. When they arrived at the company, they saw a Porsche sports car parked in the yard. A young man was standing next to the car. The car seemed to be newly bought, and a group of people were surrounding it. "Kid, you don't know how to do other things, but you're good at spending money. You spent more than 1 million on this lousy thing." A burly middle-aged man pointed at the young man and scolded him. He sounded like he was scolding him, but the smile on his face was more of a show-off. "Dad, this thing is called a Porsche. It's a high-end car. My cheap car is worth more than 1 million. If I don't do it, I'll lose face." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "That's true. We can't fail in this aspect. Businessmen talk about extravagance. People will look down on us if we're too shabby. However, you're good at making friends. Your friends are all rich. Dad has high hopes for you." While they were talking, a voice was heard. "Jun." Wu Jun was a little surprised. These days, not many people called him Jun. They all called him Boss Wu. He had been a boss for many years. He turned around and saw Chang Hanlin and his family standing at the entrance of the company. "Hanlin." After a moment of surprise, his eyes became a little unnatural. However, he quickly piled up a smile. "Why are you here?" He had heard about Chang Hanlin. In the past, Chang Hanlin had given him a lot of protection. It could be said that Chang Hanlin had helped his family. After learning that the Chang clan had gone bankrupt, he was most worried that Chang Hanlin would come looking for him. His worst fears had come true. "Brat, quickly call uncle." Wu Jun's son, Wu Xiaojun, called out awkwardly. Seeing this expression, Chang Hanlin had a bad feeling in his heart. In the past, Wu Jun had come to him many times to pull in business. Basically, he had brought his son along. This kid always licked his lips, but now he was so cold and indifferent. Xiaojun, you have grown a lot taller. You are even taller than your uncle. It must have been hard on you. Come in. Wu Jun was still very polite on the surface. He invited Chang Hanlin and his family, including his son-in-law, into the office, brewed a pot of tea, and entertained them well. He knew Chang Hanlin and his family, but he didn't know Zhang Xiu. Oh, this is, Sun Xiaohong rushed to say, my friend's son. He's here to help. Chang Lingsu lowered her head sadly again. She had already fallen to this point, but she still didn't want to say Zhang Xiu's identity. Chang Lingsu was a little disgusted by her mother's behavior. It turned out that this was very annoying. She couldn't help but look at Zhang Xiu. He still looked indifferent, as if he didn't care about this at all. It turned out that he used to look at me like this. Chang Hanlin said, he is Zhang Xiu, Zhang Yi's son. After saying this, Wu Jun's face changed. Zhang Yi. Zhang Xiu's gaze swept over indifferently. You know my dad? Wu Jun looked at Zhang Xiu again. Before, he only thought that this youth's appearance was good, but now that he looked closer, Zhang Xiu's aura was very unique and mysterious. Especially those eyes, they were as deep as the abyss. In his mind, he couldn't reconcile him with that gentle yet intelligent man. I know him. I used to do things for your dad. You don't look like your parents. He had already awakened 31 mysteries of his Shen sigils, and his Protoss bloodline had also undergone 31 changes. His appearance had also changed a little. However, as a youth in his adolescence, his appearance had changed a lot, so it didn't attract much attention. Zhang Xiu said, maybe. Wu Jun sighed. The two men he looked up to in the past were high and mighty. He had seen Zhang Yi, who was on the verge of kneeling, go to jail, and Chang Hanlin, who he had to bow his head and bow to, go bankrupt. In contrast, he was doing very well. It was impossible for him not to be proud of himself. I'll arrange a banquet. Let's gather our brothers together. Okay. Wu Jun said, I have a lot of empty rooms here. I'll get someone to tidy them up. You guys must be tired from the ride, so you can take a nap first. It was just past the restaurant, so it was the perfect time to sleep in the summer. He had arranged everything well, but he didn't mention anything that should be mentioned. After everything was arranged, Wu Jun returned to his office alone. A voice called out, Uncle Wu. Wu Jun turned around and saw Zhang Xiu behind him. Oh, it's you. Do you need something from me? I'm going to sit in your office. Wu Jun nodded. He led Zhang Xiu into his office. His office was very large, but it had the taste of a nouveau riche. Some paintings were hung on the wall. The tables and chairs were all carved out of wood. There was also a large tea table in the middle. It seemed to be made of Phoebe, and it looked very heavy. Wu Jun casually spread out on his chair and said, What's the matter? Do you need something from me? He stretched out his hand and gestured for Zhang Xiu to sit down. Zhang Xiu sat down opposite him. I want to ask you something. What is it? Zhang Xiu said, Back then, were you very close to my dad and my father-in-law? He deliberately tried to get closer to Chang Hanlin. This was also Zhang Xiu's personal wisdom. Then you must know why my dad is in jail. Wu Jun's expression changed slightly. You don't know? Zhang Xiu shook his head. This is an adult's scar. I can't ask. If I ask, it will only add to their pain. But I really want to know the reason. I want to ask Uncle Wu to explain it to me. Wu Jun said awkwardly, If your father and father-in-law don't say it, it's not convenient for me to reveal it. Zhang Xiu said, Uncle Wu, just do me a favor. It's been so long. I can't bring it into the coffin. Wu Jun thought for a moment and said, There's nothing that can't be said. Your father and father-in-law offended someone. This person is not someone your father can afford to offend. Your father was fine at that time, but your father-in-law was a businessman and couldn't handle it. Your father took a risk and did something against the law. As a result, he was caught and both of them faced the possibility of being imprisoned. One person in jail is better than two people in jail. In the end, your father took the blame. Zhang Xiu nodded. It was basically the same as the version he knew. Who is the person that we can't afford to offend? Wu Jun said, your father's former political enemy, Tang Zhengping, is now the secretary of Ninghai City's municipal committee. The Tang family is one of the 4 major families in Jiangnan. It's like a giant. We can't afford to offend him. Nephew, be obedient and forget this matter. Your parents and father-in-law don't want you to know because they don't want you to get involved. Zhang Xiu said, the Tang family. Chapter 119. Wu Jun sighed and said solemnly, yes, it's the Tang family of Jiangnan. It's been more than 10 years, but this family has not declined. Instead, it's become stronger. He was reminding Zhang Xiu that his father couldn't beat them even when he was at his peak. Now that the Zhang family had nothing and the enemy had become stronger, they were even less of a match for them. In fact, the Tang family was completely different from the Wang family. Although they were both one of the 4 major families in Jiangnan, the Wang family was neither involved in the government nor the military. They were a martial arts family. To a certain extent, they were not powerful. The reason why they could be ranked as one of the 4 major families was that they had 200 years of history and accumulated connections. Although the Tang family was a family established after the founding of the country, it was because of this that they were powerful enough. Their foothold was completely based on the power of the government. Zhang Xiu asked, how did Tang Zhengping get hold of my father's weakness back then? This. Wu Jun's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook his head and said, I don't know. I was just an insignificant person back then. I didn't know much. If you want to know, ask your father yourself. Zhang Xiu said, Uncle Wu, you don't want to say? I really don't know. What happened back then couldn't have been so simple. If his father was willing to take responsibility for what happened back then there was no reason for him to hate the Cheng family so much. Because both sides were forced to make the decision back then, they couldn't blame the Cheng family. Wu Jun in front of him should know some inside information. He just didn't want to be a busybody. However, Zhang Xiu had already made preparations before he came. Zhang Xiu said, Uncle Wu, I heard that there are problems with the quality of the new art garden project contracted by Junjie Construction. The situation is quite serious. Wu Jun's expression changed instantly. You can't talk nonsense. This matter was extremely confidential. Only he and a few people in the company knew about it. How did this young man, who was younger than his son, know about it? His heart began to turn cold. Zhang Xiu said, Uncle Wu knows whether I'm telling the truth or not. We're old friends, so naturally, he won't tell anyone about this. But I want to know, how did Tang Zhengping get hold of my father's weakness? Wu Jun said, all right, since you want to know so much, I'll tell you. Don't regret it. Zhang Xiu smiled. Wu Jun lowered his voice and said, the person who handed the evidence of your father's crimes to Tang Zhengping was your father-in-law, Chang Hanlin. Zhang Xiu nodded, then stood up and said, sorry to disturb you. Before he got a definite answer, he had already guessed most of it. The Tang family was so powerful in Jiangnan. If Chang Hanlin hadn't surrendered to Tang Zhengping would never have let the Cheng clan go, and the Cheng clan would never have been able to develop. Wu Jun waited for Zhang Xiu to leave, then sighed and said, there's no need to dwell on the past. The only one who suffers is yourself. Only when you truly let go will your path be wider. After saying that, he was a little stunned. He actually said something so philosophical about life. It seemed that hanging a few calligraphy and paintings in the office was still a little useful. When Zhang Xiu returned to his room, Chang Lingsu opened the door and said, I went to knock on your door just now, but you weren't there. Where did you go? I was just walking around. What's the matter? Chang Lingsu said, My parents said that it's not appropriate for us to go to the banquet later, so they told us to make our own arrangements. Just now, Brother Xiao Jun said that he has a friend gathering and asked if we wanted to go. I wanted to ask for your opinion. If you go, we'll go together. If not, I won't go alone. Zhang Xiu said. Oh. Zhang Xiu had never been interested in this kind of gathering that he didn't know. However, since they were guests, he couldn't stay in his room and cultivate alone. It's dinner anyway. It's okay to go. If it's not fun, come back first. Chang Lingsu responded, Then I'll let Brother Xiao Jun know. On the way to the gathering, Wu Xiaojun introduced, There are several big families in Ninghai City, the Song family, the Ren family, the Qian family, the Sun family, the Tang family. Among these families, of course, the Tang family and the Lin family are the most powerful. Old Master Tang has been in charge of Ninghai City for many years, and Tang Mingji is the #1 young master in Ninghai City. Wu Xiaojun glanced at the beautiful Chang Lingsu and said, Originally, Su Su could stand shoulder to shoulder with them, but now. But there's me. Now I've finally squeezed into their circle. If there's a gathering or something, they can invite me. Adults wanted to squeeze into the upper-class circle, but so did the younger generation. Wu Xiaojuan's family background was average, so he could barely enter the circle. However, he belonged to the younger generation. His father had also spent a lot of money to buy him a Porsche. Chang Lingsu was a little nervous when she heard this. It's such a high-end gathering. Will it be bad for you to take us there? Wu Xiaojun said, It's okay. Your brother Xiaojun is a big shot now. It's not a big deal to bring a few friends. Chang Lingsu still didn't think it was a good idea. Second Miss Chang used to be a member of that circle. She knew the rules the best. Those rich young masters were very realistic. They socialized with you because of your status, background, and connections. They helped each other to form a circle. If you, a person without any benefits, entered the circle, they would be the most repulsed. They would mercilessly kick you out. She was a living example. Her best friend of 3 years, Ouyang Qian, had broken up with Li Dan just like that. How about we don't go? We'll find a place to have a meal. Wu Xiaojun was a little anxious. How can we do that? I've already promised my dad. Cheng Lingsu looked at Zhang Xiu. She wanted to hear his opinion. However, when she saw him, she laughed in her heart. In Jiangnan, was there any place that Mr. Jiang couldn't go? She said, Okay then. The car stopped in front of a villa. There were a lot of luxury cars, Ferraris, Bentleys, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, and Wu Xiaojuan's Porsche. It was a little embarrassing to park there. We're here. The party was held in a private villa. In recent years, some people had become rich and learned how to enjoy life. The villa was comparable to a 5-star hotel. There was even a swimming pool in the villa. It was like a movie party in Hong Kong. There was even a group of girls wearing bikinis running around the pool. The young masters were also wearing swimsuits. The sun had just set, and it was a good time to play. They were holding all kinds of cocktails and red wine in their hands and chatting with each other. It was as if there was a party going on. One of the young men with oily hair and a powdered face said, Did your family see Mr. Jiang when they went to Zhongqing this time? The young man with one leg hanging in the pool said, It's not that easy to see Mr. Jiang. Those who went to Zhongqing to see Mr. Jiang were basically rejected. My family's situation is still all right. Wang Xintong saw my dad and chatted for about half an hour. The person beside him asked, The princess of the Wang family? The young man nodded. Yes, that's her. A bikini girl came out of the water and said, I heard that she's very beautiful. How beautiful is she to be able to move Mr. Jiang's heart? The young man said, Wang Xintong's beauty is indeed top-notch. However, Mr. Jiang didn't fall for her because of her beauty. It's because of the 200-year-old Wang family behind her and her IQ, which has been passed down for 200 years. In the future, this woman will play a very important role in Jiangnan. The young man with oily hair and a powdered face said, "As long as the Wong family and Mr. Jiang don't fall, Wong Xintong won't fall either. She has double insurance. This woman is really scary." The young man drank the cocktail in his hand in one gulp. "Mr. Jiang is very generous. If he can suppress the Wong family, then I'm afraid that the other forces in Jiangnan will be affected. Many places will have to be reshuffled." As he spoke, Wu Xiaojun had already excitedly brought Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu in. He hadn't been to this kind of event often, so he still felt that it was very fresh and exciting. "Young Master Song." Wu Xiaojun saw the young man holding the cocktail and excitedly went over to greet him. The young man raised his chin at him as a response and complained, "Why are you so late?" Young Master Song's intimate attitude made Wu Xiaojun feel excited again. "I waited for two friends, so I was a bit late." Young Master Song looked over and saw Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu. When he saw Cheng Lingsu, he was stunned. He obviously didn't expect to be shocked by her beauty. "Who are you?" Wu Xiaojun said awkwardly, "Relatives. My family used to be very good. However, there's been some problems recently." The second daughter of the Cheng clan. Program was not only famous in Zhongqing, but also in the entire Jiangnan province. They naturally heard about the bankruptcy of several real estate groups. Young Master Song revealed a look of realization. "Didn't you see that everyone here is in swimsuits? Bring them in and change into bikinis before coming out." Chapter 120. Everyone present looked at Cheng Lingsu with schadenfreude. They really wanted to see how the rich young lady of the past was down and out now that she had nothing. Her beautiful and moving appearance aroused the desire of the rich young men present to destroy her. They wanted to pull down her arrogance layer by layer and then completely destroy it. Cheng Lingsu had experienced this kind of trick before. However, it was only because she was in the same group as the spokesperson. Now that it was her, she smiled slightly and said, "I came with Brother Xiao Jun to watch the fun. I don't plan on getting into the water. Besides, I don't know how to swim." Young Master Song said, "It's fine if you don't want to get into the water. Patty should look like Patty. You still have to change into a bikini." Normally, Cheng Lingsu wasn't such a conservative person. Now that it was summer, she was wearing cool clothes. However, being forced to change into a bikini and then having the boys stare at her figure, any girl would feel uncomfortable and feel like she was being molested. Cheng Lingsu said, "If that's the case, then I won't disturb everyone's mood. Brother Xiao Jun, you guys have fun. I'll be leaving first." Young Master Song's face turned cold. "Second Miss Cheng, are you not giving me face?" Rich young masters were always so domineering and overbearing. Otherwise, how could they show off their ability? If he didn't let you go, you really couldn't leave. Cheng Lingsu's face became a bit ugly. She was too familiar with their tricks. If she didn't agree, not only would she be dealt with, her family's business would also be affected. This was how the second-generation circle played. However, her Cheng family was poor now. What was there to be afraid of? She opened her mouth and said, "Young Master Song, are you trying to make things difficult for others?" Young Master Song was even more embarrassed. "Second Miss Cheng, are you looking down on us?" A bikini girl in the pool said. She was around 20 years old and dyed her hair brown. She wasn't very beautiful, but she was a rich girl after all and took good care of herself. She must have some background to be able to speak here. Some people like to show off their bodies. They felt that it would be a pity if they didn't show off their bodies. They couldn't wait for boys to stare at them. However, some girls just didn't like it. They only showed it to their men. Everyone had different views. However, her words implied that Cheng Lingsu viewed them as licentious. There were suspicions that he was trying to kill her. In fact, many men liked to invite young models to their gatherings. They would wear bikinis or even more revealing clothes to play with them. There was no doubt that they would play such a role. Cheng Lingsu said, "That's not what I meant. Please help yourselves." Chung Ling-su turned around and was about to leave, but she was grabbed by a steel-like hand and couldn't move. Zhang Xiu said, "Go and change into a bikini. Pick one with the least amount of fabric and the most revealing." Chung Ling-su looked at Zhang Xiu in disbelief. Her charming face became deathly pale. Why? At this moment, Chung Ling-su felt that her world had collapsed. She still had a trace of hope for Zhang Xiu, because he had liked her since they were young. However, at this moment, she was in despair. If Zhang Xiu still liked her, no matter how much he hated her, he wouldn't let the woman he liked wear bikinis in front of so many people and let these men see her thoroughly. Zhang Xiu said indifferently, "Do you want this sovereign to say it again?" Chung Ling-su's eyes reddened. She bit her red lips and said, "Torturing me will make you feel better. Okay, I'll change. Where are the clothes? Where is the changing room?" Immediately, seeing that Chung Ling-su agreed, whistles came from the swimming pool. The whistles were filled with teasing, causing Chung Ling-su's body to slightly tremble. Young Master Song grinned and pointed in the direction of the changing room. Then he said to Zhang Xiu, "Brat, hit the road." Wu Xiaojun looked at Zhang Xiu with a bit of astonishment. His father had told him that Chung Ling-su and Zhang Xiu had an engagement when they were young. This brat was really something. In order to climb up the social ladder, he was even willing to cheat his own fiancée. Not long after, Chung Ling-su wore a black bikini swimsuit. Her exquisite curves were exposed. Under the setting sun, her skin was delicate and white. The moment she came out, the entire swimming pool quieted down. No matter if it was a man or a woman, they all stared at her. Even with Zhang Xiu's picky sunshine, he couldn't help but admit that Chung Ling-su's figure was extremely good. Her waist was very thin, and the curves of her waist and butt were even more perfect. However, at this time, her eyes were filled with tears. She stubbornly held them in her eyes, adding a touch of delicate and pitiful feeling. In her eyes, there was only Zhang Xiu. She asked, "Now, are you satisfied?" Zhang Xiu raised his mouth and smiled. There was an indescribable evil charm. With such a good figure, you should let everyone see. Chung Ling-su's body trembled. "You bastard!" The Zhang Xiu in front of her was really too strange. She couldn't see any trace of his childhood. The current him was a devil that wanted to destroy her. Young Master Song felt that it was a pity. In this day and age, those with good looks didn't have good figures, those with good figures didn't have good looks, and those with good figures didn't have good looks. It was a pity that this second Miss Cheng's family was bankrupt. Otherwise, he might have been tempted. In fact, he was a bit tempted now. What's so lively about? Suddenly, a voice sounded. Following this voice, two young men walked in. The leader was a man in his 20s. He was a bit older than them. He wore glasses and had an extraordinary aura. Young Master Tang. Young Master Tang. Everyone in the pool was a little excited. The person who came was the famous first young master of Ninghai City, Tang Mingji. Zhang Xiu looked over curiously. If he guessed correctly, he was Tang Zhongping's son. His gaze landed on Chung Ling-su as well. This looks unfamiliar to me. How could Wu Xiaojun miss such a good opportunity to talk to Tang Mingji? Young Master Tang, this is a distant relative of mine. Chung Ling-su has been in Zhongqing for many years. She occasionally comes to play today. She's beautiful. Tang Mingji's gaze wandered over Chung Ling-su's body. Zhang Xiu could see that Chung Ling-su had goosebumps all over her body. "I'm Tang Mingji." He graciously reached out his hand. Chung Ling-su had no choice but to reach out her hand. Chung Ling-su. Unexpectedly, Tang Mingji pulled Chung Ling-su's hand and refused to let go. Chung Ling-su turned pale with fright and let out a scream. Her delicate body was pulled into the pool by him and she fell in with a splash. Suddenly, the pool was filled with cheers. Cough, cough, cough. Chung Ling-su popped her head out of the water and kept coughing. She knew how to swim, but she was not a good swimmer. Just now, it was too sudden and she choked badly. Cheng Ling Su, right? Not bad. Tang Mingji had a playful smile on his face. Cheng Ling Su's eyes were red. She didn't know if it was because she was choking on water or because she was crying, but it looked like she was crying. The tears in her eyes mixed with the water on her face. At this moment, Cheng Ling Su felt wronged, but she could only grit her teeth and swallow it down. However, her tears were about to flow out. Tisk, tisk, Tang Mingji said, your skin is so good, really. As he spoke, he saw the crowd around him suddenly widen their eyes in shock and disbelief as they looked behind him. He turned his head and saw someone raise a leg and kick him hard in the butt, sending him flying. Oh my God! The girls in the pool all covered their mouths. F***ck. The boys could not help but exclaim. Does this kid know who that is? Haining City's #1 young master, Tang Mingji. He is one of the few young masters in the entire Jiangnan circle. He is the direct descendant of the Tang family, one of the 4 big families in Jiangnan. You dare to kick him? Wu Xiaojun was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. My dear brother, you are my ancestor. You really dare to kick him? You are in big trouble. These young masters had a big problem. They could bully you, but when something happened to them, they would be angrier than anyone else. They would definitely return the favor 10-fold or even 100-fold. With a splash, Tang Mingji fell into the water. He was a good swimmer, but when he was suddenly kicked into the water, he choked quite a bit. His entire body was burning with anger. He was as angry as a lion. He wanted to make the person who kicked him into the water suffer a fate worse than death. But just as he was about to pop his head out, a hand grabbed his hair roughly and pressed him into the water. He struggled with all his might, his arms flapping with all his might. He was almost out of breath, but the strength of that hand was too strong. It was like an iron clamp. He kicked young Master Tang into the water and even pressed him into the water. This kid is really asking for it. Just wait for young Master Tang's revenge. Splash, splash. Young Master Tang slapped the water with all his might. The pool was not deep. When he stood in, he could still pop his head out. But he was still pressed into the water. Time passed by slowly. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Everyone slowly became nervous. This was a little too much. Something bad was going to happen. 40 seconds. Young Master Tang, who was underwater, stopped moving after struggling with all his might. Don't tell me he drowned. The onlookers could not help but stand up. Their faces started to turn pale. They saw young Master Tang float out of the water, face down, motionless. He was like a floating corpse. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.